October 2nd at 7 p.m. Roll call, Manager Falk.
Commissioner Hempel,
Here.
Commissioner Hagus, Commissioner Gray,
Here.
Commissioner Zona,
Here.
Commissioner Bevan,
Here.
Commissioner Goss,
Here.
President Atwood,
Here.
and Commissioner Hagus is here via teleconference.
Right.
I ask if you're able to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight, we are here to discuss the NHT Sports Complex lease. That will be the only thing discussed tonight. We will begin with questions from the board regarding the lease to the developers. If you may, I would like to start. We have the gentleman seated over here to my left. I'm going to ask what led to the formation of this concept?
That's a great question, Jay. What led to the formation of this concept, this idea, was Dave and I are both actively involved in youth sports in the community and also in high school. One winter evening, we were sending over 100 kids to Monroeville to participate in a football winter session. We kind of looked around and thought, well, we're all driving out here. We're all spending money to send our kids outside of the community. Wouldn't it be great if we could somehow put something together to kind of keep us here? And that kind of led to further discussions, conversations about our backgrounds, and we realized that we actually had the ability to pull the right people and resources together to do this as those conversations developed. I know I played sports in Norman School District, and this is something I would have loved to have been here 30, 40 years ago. And that's the continual feedback I've gotten from the community, being actively involved in sports, that the township has needed this for a long time, and we believe we pulled the right group together to do that.
I'm going to ask that we please do not disrupt the meeting. My second question is why $1 a year for the lease? And would you be open to other discussion on that?
We're certainly willing to hear feedback, ideas, or suggestions as we have been along the entire process. The $1 a year lease comes from the 2010 to 2013 Healthy Pursuits feasibility study that was conducted by North Huntington, which 4 sites were identified, 2 of which I believe now are completed housing plans. The Public Works facility site was one of the remaining 2 sites. And in that study, they actually recommended $1 a year lease in 2010, 2013. And I have a copy of that here. I believe it's available through the North Huntington Township website as well. And that was the genesis. It was also feedback from certain commissioners that we spoke with about the ground, how much work would need to be done. It was not realistic to expect a large return on investment for that property just based on the topographical issues and the amount of groundwork that needs to be done to make it a usable property. I'm intimate to that property. I've lived in that neighborhood for my entire life. So I know that property very, very well, and it has its challenges. And so for us to commit to that type of capital investment, and we're looking at $30+ million bringing into the community, we felt that that was fair, and it also aligns with the feasibility studies and the feedback we received outside of public comment.
My next question is, why are you seeking a lease with the township rather than purchasing land on your own?
Well, this potential lease, I think it It allows the township to continue to control the property long-term, keep the asset under roof. The sale would be a process that would, a public sale, the bid process may not afford the opportunity for something like this to be built. It's going to go to the highest bidder, which I understand the economics of that, and that could be a great thing. But that's money now, and those not necessarily community assets. This is a way for us to put on site something that benefits the community, the town, something the township has been asking for through different channels, different ways, whether it's a community center or a private venture or a joint public-private venture. This is something that allows us to meet that need in a manner that would be acceptable by the township, by the rules, versus someone purchasing it and sitting on it for X amount of years and nothing may be developed and may be sold and built into something that the township has no control over.
My next question is, with the Route 30 project scheduled to come through in the next few years, do you have a plan for alternate access to Route 30 East?
We do have tentative plans. It's early in that discussion. We will require a PennDOT study that would evaluate our thoughts and proposal, our design plan. And we plan to go through that if we get to the ground lease, which they'll evaluate that. So yes, we do. We don't plan to add new lights. We hope not to do that. And that's our plan, that we're trying to commit to not increasing the number of traffic lights along Route 30. And that it's a private negotiation with a private landowner that we'll have to get an easement to do that, and which will invest more money into a secondary road that'll make it safer for the users of the facility, residents. It'll keep triaxles from cutting across 4 lanes of traffic to head east. It'll also divert traffic from having to go down Skellytown or Maple Lane. So we view it as a positive for the community as a whole.
Can I speak on that?
Sure.
If I may chime in on that point as well, it's important to note that the ground lease has a 365-day contingency period. And the purpose of the contingency period is to get deep into the feasibility of the project, the makeup of the project, ingress, egress, traffic flow, all of those things. And so, throughout the process of getting the traffic study done and throughout the process of getting permits issued ultimately by the township, who, the landlord is also the approving body for the permits that will ultimately be issued. Obviously, whatever the traffic study is going to recommend, we're going to have to work with the township to get approval for permits to be issued as well. So I think it's important that the public also understands that it's still far too early to have an entire site plan with every detail of ingress and egress worked out, but there are processes that are required to ensure that traffic flow does not become problematic, and those are absolutely things that would be figured out during that 365-day contingency period.
Thank you. I have 3 more questions. My first one is, will there be any vehicle access or parking anywhere that abuts adjacent neighborhoods or roads?
No, there's no plan whatsoever for access to the facility from any of the adjacent neighborhoods, one of which is mine. There'll be no parking available, any new parking. There will be no additional parking, no new parking, no adjacent to any adjacent neighborhoods.
My next question is, will there be public access to these facilities?
Yeah, it'll be fully open to the public. The fields will be able to be used when they're not currently under a sublease and rented out and occupied.
And last question is, are any of the facilities going to be for reserve only? Maybe for any exclusive tenants?
There's nothing that's proposed or to be built that we've discussed, such as the fields, the indoor facility, that would be unavailable to the public for use. Field space and time will be rented, obviously, and that's kind of the model with it, but I'm not sure I fully understand the question.
Would there be anything in the indoor facility or any fields that would be exclusively reserved for a tenant and not have access, is what I'm asking?
Yeah, I mean, when the Riverhounds occupy their facility and are using it, they're only about, I think, 10 to 15% of the utilization of their own facility. It's available for use beyond that. If there's healthcare providers or certain subtenants that have private areas, I would assume that would not be available, such as like a sports rehabilitation facility would be by appointment only through their physicians. And some of the subtenants that may build out space over time, such as, perhaps like a baseball academy or a basketball gym that's for private use, I would imagine but those are not our facilities. They will be subtenants. Are we focused fields, indoor and outdoor? They'll be available for the public, if that's your
Fields
question.
in the indoor facility?
Yes.
Yes, they'll be available
Thank
to
you.
the public. All my other concerns tend to be centered around zoning and planning, which is not really the subject tonight, but I will go ahead and recognize any other commissioners who would like to ask questions.
I do.
Go ahead, Commissioner Gray, you have the floor.
Mr. Zugai, you said you have been driving to Monroeville, spending money driving there, and you thought it was a better idea to come here. Why not do it here? So is this a cost savings to you in that drive to Monroeville? Or is it more of an idea, and forgive me for saying this, but more of a self-serving idea to keep that money in-house, in your house? You are the developer, correct?
Yes, I'm involved in the project.
Okay.
I would say, driving here versus driving there would be a cost savings, yes.
Sure.
I think a lot of the people here, I look around, I see some familiar faces, I know some of the kids that are here. It would be a cost savings for them too. Would you not agree that it would be self-serving of the township to bring that revenue here? I would say it would. That revenue stays here,
Can
taxable
you
income is
explain
here.
how that would be, self-serving, to bring that here when we get no portion of it? Per
Which
your lease?
portion do you not get? The tax revenue?
Tell me what portion we do get. I've asked at every meeting, point out a benefit for the residents out there, other than convenience of location. We would welcome you with open
Sure. I'm
arms
happy to answer your
private
question.
property.
Thank you. That's a great question. I'd love to answer that if I could speak.
You will maintain order.
So township benefits, economic growth, new businesses, new jobs, taxable income, revenue. There's increased access. So on a public health perspective, increased access to sports, fitness, wellness. Youth engagement, so multi-generational, as well as keeping kids active in constructive, healthy activities. Improved infrastructure, so we'd be investing in the roads. We'd be
What roads?
the roads to the facility that
Okay.
we just discussed a few moments ago.
Okay,
A new venue for cultural events that are used by the township. Any of the individual organizations within the township can use it for cultural events. It's a centrally located asset that anyone could really use here. It'll attract new residents, new housing, which seems to be a major concern here.
If I may also jump in, because I find your question a bit curious in so much as you're on the board and you're asking what the benefit to the township would be. when someone wants to come and spend $30 million of their money on new development, that does create new improvements upon which property taxes are paid to the school district, the township, correct?
On private property, yes.
Correct. And whenever it's a ground lease, the improvements on the ground lease are taxable. If you look at a property tax card, we're not talking about the value of the land because we know that that is low pursuant to the township's own study. It's an undevelopable site by most counts. And so when the improvements that are constructed to come out of the ground on someone else's nickel come out of the ground, they now have a valuation, an assessed value on the property card, do they not?
Yes.
Yes, and so those improvements will generate tax revenue for the township, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I think that's a very important fact that should not be glossed over. You're focusing, I think, on the $1 per year of the nominal, no issue, no payment, ground lease payment, right? What you should be focusing on is the tax revenue. What you should be focusing on is we're talking about a 40-acre tract of land that has 0 jobs currently outside of the township's municipal works facility. If there's $30 million of improvements constructed out here, how many jobs will that bring roughly? Hundreds, at least? Is that not a benefit to this township that you would prefer to keep here as opposed to Monroeville? Is that tax revenue that you would like to grab here or give to Monroeville? Those are the questions I'd put back to the question that you have posed.
Okay. Mr. Zugai, you had said about access to the fields or facilities that would be available or the public would have access. You haven't said how much that would cost. It would be the same as anybody else going down there and renting a field or space, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. There again, I get back to what's in it for the residents. The taxes you mentioned are fairly low in a source of income. What about the indirect costs associated with us participating in this lease? For example, the 50% of the transfer tax that we would have to pay.
This is a lease, there should not be transfer taxes, right?
There would only be transfer taxes if the lease were in excess of 30 years on a fixed term.
Well, I believe from speaking with a real estate attorney that this lease would be considered a transfer, effectively transfer. And we could very well have to pay that portion.
Under Pennsylvania law, if you have a lease that is 30 years or greater, there is a transfer tax associated with it. So with a renewal under this lease, because it's a 29-year lease, if you do a renewal, there will more likely than not be a transfer tax applied to this lease.
Upon the renewal.
Thank you.
What I would suggest in response to that, because if you think that the real estate taxes that'll be generated by tens of millions of dollars in new development are not significant, I'll tell you, you're going to think the transfer taxes on computed value for this property's assessed value are going to be minuscule. So I would suggest right here that I would offer to pay it for you guys if that gets you over your hump.
Okay. Thank you for that offer. What about the indirect costs ongoing with that facility? Such as, I think, personally, I believe we would have to hire somebody in staff just to monitor the leases and the subleases and to make sure you're upholding your end of the bargain. How about the extra police we would need long-term to handle calls down there, provide service? How about the liability insurance that is required in your lease that we carry for the property? And I'll let those go as unanswered questions. I had said a month ago, I believe, to your gentleman, that I don't believe there's any language that could be put in the lease that would be satisfactory to me, so I won't beat you up on it. I've been against it for 6 months or 5 months, whenever it came up, and I will walk out of here tonight against it. So I'll let you go with that.
Well, you don't have to leave them unanswered. Who reports to the property today if there's an event or the police are called?
Pardon?
Who reports today if there's an event at that location and the police are called?
Our police. That's how many days a year? How many, we had a 250th celebration down there. Other than that, we have our own employees down there. No
I have
one
not
else.
read a single study that increases the crime rate when a multi-sports facility goes in, and I've looked.
It's just the liability of exposure. With more people.
Yes, and
more
we carry
sports,
private insurance
and
to cover those matters. The lease clearly dictates that we have to carry proper insurance for these matters, and
Okay.
it's really a non-issue. It's a commercially acceptable clause.
Okay, thank you.
One question to the commissioner. What would you like to see done at this property? Because any development requires police, probably more than a youth sports complex, for example. What would you like to see done at this 40-acre tract?
Well, I was part of the board when we bought the property, and we bought it with the intent of moving our public works building down there, which we did, and we bought it for future growth if we need to expand public works, if we need to possibly build a new townhouse rather than remodel the one we have now. Maybe we could sell that one and move. New construction is pretty much always cheaper than remodeling
Sure.
existing bad construction.
And so you bought
so-
that when?
Pardon?
When did you buy that in that 90-acre tract?
I believe we bought some of it, was it 90 acres you're asking? about?
2003, we bought 80 acres. In 2012, we bought
Correct.
13 points.
All right.
13.
So we're talking about 10 and
So-
20 years of hold. What have you built in the past 20 years out there?
Nothing.
And-
We've had it
and how
in
much of that-
reserve For
how
a
much-
reason.
And how much of that land would be left for you to continue building nothing on after this ground lease would be signed?
To me.
If you're
that-
concerned about not having room to grow, where's the proof that you guys really have an intention to grow on that land? And you're still
We don't-
keeping 43 acres.
We don't have to prove our intention. You have to prove yours. And we bought it for future generations. Whether I'm on this board, whether other people are, they want to build a new building. We had talked about building a senior center or a rec center or something municipally owned.
Understood. And with all respect, while you might be looking at future generations with 20 more years of non-development, we're focusing on this generation who has families here now and that want to play sports and that want to have facilities available that compete with all the neighboring communities around here. That's what we're trying to do for this generation. Now.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask a question real quick of either Manager Falk or Solicitor Dice. Do we currently have to carry liability insurance on that property now, correct?
That is correct. You currently have to carry liability insurance on
So
it.
that insurance will be there regardless if this goes in or not?
Yes.
Yep, okay, thank you.
I have a question.
May I?
I think Commissioner Zona would be next, then we'll go to you, Commissioner Goff.
I had a few questions, but some of them were answered. The taxes, obviously, you're going to pay taxes on your new development, correct? On the new.
That's correct.
Yeah. The roadways, and I know you said you have plans for a different type of roadway coming in there. And just to be clear, you have no plans to enter or exit any traffic onto Charles Drive or any of those roads in that neighborhood down below, correct?
Yes, that is 100% correct. It will, and including Skellytown, thank you.
Yeah.
Great question.
Good.
There will be no entrance from any neighborhoods. Everything will ingress and egress from Route 30.
From Route 30.
We will have order. Citizens will have a chance to offer their input later in the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I was going to address the acres too, but we basically did. We own approximately 94 acres there. And what was the lease for? How many acres is in the lease?
Exact 43 acres.
43, which leaves us approximately the same amount, 40, a little more,
Correct.
47 acres or so.
Correct.
So you're not taking that whole area. There will be 40-some acres remaining.
That's
If-
correct.
If this lease goes through.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Goss?
Thank you. So I have 6 questions, all focus on the people in this audience right now. Question number 1, how do the folks of North Huntington Township benefit? Will there be a specific multi-purpose field for them? Will there be an indoor track for them? Will there be an outdoor track for them?
The first field that's going in is going to be a community use field.
And what is that community use field? Is it multi-purpose?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yes, it'll be a multi-sport field that anything you could play on the high school stadium field today would be comparable.
Okay. Second question, how many buildings in total, what's your end state with how many buildings? In other words, when you guys are completely built out and you get what exactly you wanted, according to your diagrams, what do you anticipate, how many buildings?
Yeah, we have 30 total buildings and one.
I don't think your mic's on.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
So one building would be the 94,000 square foot multi-sport field indoor, and then there would be 2 accessory buildings that would host baseball and basketball. And then the 4th building would be a concession stand with bathrooms. So it would be 4 total buildings.
Okay. Does that include a senior center for our seniors, cost-free to them?
It does not, but we also, in our development, we're preparing lot 1 and 2 as you come down Public Road. And in our lease that we added recently, any change from the master lease program would have to be voted on by the commissioners. So for lot 1 and 2 to be developed, that's a very real potential for a rec center of that nature.
Okay. Will there be an indoor track and an outdoor track? Yes or no?
The indoor track would not be an 8-lane track. It would be an aerial, I would say, 4-lane track that would be above the indoor facility. As far as an outdoor track, our goal is to do a outdoor running trail. So I would say outdoor track now.
For the folks that are sitting in this building tonight and the folks that can't be here tonight, will they be allowed to access that outdoor track free of cost to them? Yes.
The public trail will be free of cost at any point in time.
Okay.
And we're working with a great group to put it all together. So, yeah, that would be open to the public.
Okay, my last question, it's a 3-phased question. There's folks that are going to be backing up their private property to your property if this goes through. I'd like to address their concerns.
Absolutely.
Concern number 1 out of 3, light mitigation, noise mitigation in regards to hours, and the safety and the privacy that they can make sure that their backyards are going to be safe to the point that they're not going to have people wandering into and through their backyards. So let's start with lights.
So the light study, we'll have to do a light pollution study that will have to go through zoning and planning. Once that will be strictly zoning and planning, we'll have to approve our light plan, and we will have to meet the requirements of the light pollution. So that would be our next phase for the lights.
Yeah, and we're not reinventing the wheel when it comes to this concept. There are many, many commercial products available that fit right into place with the LED lighting system to mitigate this, up to reduce 90% of any light pollution whatsoever.
And the lights will only be on till, I think 98% of youth sports end by 9 p.m. So I can't imagine lights would be on more than 9:15 for people to get out the door. It's not going to be like Walmart where the lights stay on all night. It's not open 24/7. And in the spring and summertime, the lights would be very minimal, maybe 2 hours in the evening. But yeah, any lighting that would have to go through planning and zoning for us to have approvals to put it down there.
And the noise kind of goes with that, because the noise and lights always have to do with the hours of operation. I really don't want to see an inconvenience to the families if this goes through, whose properties back up to your property.
No,
Lastly.
we agree.
I'm sorry,
That
go
was
ahead.
the, why we released that most updated drawing yesterday. We wanted to clarify our lease lines within them 43 acres. Because if you see if everybody sees on the updated drawings, our lease line, we won't even be leasing the property up against the neighbors in, what's your plan? Taylor Ridge. So we won't have access to any of that property. I think there's over a 200-foot buffer as is with trees that we won't have access to per our lease. So no access could come from Taylor Ridge. The trees at that tree line can never be taken down because that will still stay under the public works portion of the lease. So if everybody looks at the boundary line, that's what we're using as our buffer for noise. Now, the upper field, we would have to probably put in additional trees and some fencing to make sure there's a nice corridor there to keep people out. And I think that's up off of Skellytown on the northern field. Maple Lane. Thank you.
So it might seem kind of silly to ask, the height of the fencing, anybody can circumvent a 4-foot fence, anybody can climb a 6-foot fence. If I get into 8 feet, then I create a really good barrier for the private citizen that's living there. So how high would that fence be in order to protect those families that live up against the property?
We would want it to be aesthetically pleasing as well because it's imaging of our complex. So, I mean, whatever requirement planning and zoning would allow us to put there is what we'd be more than willing to put in place and put landscaping and shrubbery to help with, to make it look.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Just to put a finer point on, because these are all excellent questions for any community development. The residents should know, if you live in the area, how will your family and your home, your property value, your day-to-day be affected? And I would just remind, mostly for the public's benefit, if this ground lease is executed, that's just the beginning of a process. It still has to go through this same township's zoning hearing board and planning commission before any building permits would be issued.
Right.
And so I would expect all of these issues that you're talking about to be much more detailed, vetted throughout that process with very specific plans that would be issued in conjunction with those permits that would be issued. And so I don't want there to be any confusion about, oh, well, why don't they have all these answers to answer how high will the fence be, or how are you going to mitigate the light? Because we're not at that part of the development yet. When we are ready to go in for building permits, you better believe all those questions will have answers. So I just want to make that process.
And I appreciate that, and I know I might be a little bit on the preemptive side in asking these questions, but these folks have been contacting us and asking questions, and I want their questions to be heard tonight.
Absolutely.
So they have a peace of mind whether it is a go forward or it's a halt. But I thank you for your responses.
And they're encouraged to also come to the zoning hearing board meetings when that time arises too.
Absolutely.
Because that would be the most effective time.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner Goss. Go ahead, Commissioner Bevan, you have the floor.
Yeah, I have a question along those lines. Our process here in North Huntington Township is to go through the planning and zoning committees first before it's presented to the commissioners. So why did you present this to the commissioners at a meeting without going through planning and zoning? Because planning and zoning would have given us more of an idea of what you wanted, the extent of what you had in mind. I mean, some of this stuff would have been a complete surprise, and it was, if you didn't go through planning and zoning. That's just our process, and I think it makes more sense to do that than to just say, here we are, commissioners, and this is what we want to do.
Fair question. So another point of process, I think, is the response, which is, if planning and zoning owned this land, we would have absolutely started with them. We're not going to, we're not going to start spending hundreds of thousands of dollars of soft costs to start going through the entitlements process with zoning and planning commission unless we actually have a signed lease in place. No developer of any kind would expend that soft cost without any rights to the land. So it's absolute, and that's why we have the 365-day contingency period. So if we would have wanted to spend $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 on getting firm plans for development in place with all the accoutrement that comes with that, just to go through the zoning hearing board process before talking about negotiating a lease, well, what if we get to this stage and the lease doesn't get approved? Be out $300,000? Yeah? For whose benefit? Would you do that? Any of the naysayers, would you do that? Right. That's not the way development works.
Ms. Bevan, if I may, I do, to explain, I think generally developers will either own the parcel or they'll have a lease in place prior to going to planning and zoning for any type of a development. So the proper procedure would normally be going this route. It's just because we're the owners of the property that it's being vetted in a different way than a private entity would do for these developers.
I want to thank you,
Commissioner Bevan?
Solicitor Dice.
Go ahead, Commissioner Hempel.
I think I made myself clear back in this September 12th meeting where I announced publicly that I am definitely against this. I'm against it because it's our taxpayers' property. I believe that the taxpayers own that property, and I don't believe any of us up here have that authority to give this property away for the $1 a year lease for business, for profit. There again, I'm staying to that, but I do have a question. We have been given different drawings, if everybody has seen this drawing, and the boundaries look great, but they butt right up to our Public Works building, and you're showing a splash park right next to where dump trucks and bulldozers and everything else would be coming down. And what parent in their right mind would have kids in a splash park with all the Public Works vehicles coming right next to it? So, is this an accurate drawing? This is what we've all received. It's on the website, it's been on the news. Can you explain that to us, please?
This is a design rendering, and the splash pad was something we spoke with the township in regards to it. And we showed it and added on the rendering so that there's options for it to come. That's not the only access for Public Works. If you come down, you'll be able to stay straight as well. So depending on how that signage depending on how that will work out. Like I said, it is still early in the phase on if that's exactly where the splash pad will stay located. It's a valid question, valid concerns that brought up, and they will be addressed.
Okay, with that said, I'm under the understanding that this meeting here and then our next work session meeting is, I believe, the 10th, and then our regular meeting is the 16th. What do you guys expect us to do on the 16th of this month?
We would anticipate this move be nominated for a vote on the 10th, and then followed up at the regular business meeting on the 16th for a public vote.
Okay, I'm going back to my statement on the 12th. As of September 12th, I had spent less than 20 hours as a sitting board member on this board. Out of those 20 hours, and I've stated it before, I'll cut that in half. We have a total of 10 hours, I'm estimating on the high side, of talking about this sports complex on Public Works property, North Huntington Township Works property, and you're expecting us to make a decision, yes or no, by our next meeting?
This is for a ground lease to conduct due diligence and flesh out the items that are discussed here, public questions by the board as well. This is just the preliminary stages of that, and we would be able to dive in deeper and provide more clear answers as we move down the process to understand exactly what the ground can do, where we can put roads, what it will hold, where the fields will fit exactly. So this is just the beginning process. We personally have spent thousands of hours on this. So I'm sorry that you have spent 20 hours and do not feel that that is adequate enough. I have spent personally hundreds of hours on this, trying to help the township and move this forward in a way that I view is beneficial to the township. And I'm willing to spend more time, if you would like to spend more time together and discuss this, however you see fit. I'm willing to put the time in and do the work.
So you're willing to maybe go more months in talking, and because I was given an email, I believe all of us as board members were given an email from our president stating it's the September 12th meeting. After that meeting, I was given this email that you guys were going elsewhere. Can you explain that?
Sure, we are evaluating other projects, just as any developer would. We have been in contact with other municipalities, other private landowners, just evaluating what is available and what could be suitable should this not work. But we're committed here. We're from here. We want this here. Our kids are here. That's why we're doing this. It would be much easier to just cut bait and run and go somewhere else and do it. But I'm not interested in the easy things. The hard things matter. And I want it here for our community because I see the long-term benefit of this. I hope that you see the long-term benefit of this. It's not just about sports, it's the economics behind it. Job growth, tax growth, all the things that we've gone over ad nauseum. I'm willing to do the hard things, and to walk away is easy.
Let me ask this maybe to our solicitor. I know I've been asked questions, and I've asked these questions, and I'm not really sure the correct answer, but I'm going to go to our solicitor. A lot of residents have come up to me and said, hey, can we put this on a referendum for the November election vote in North Huntington?
So the procedure for a referendum in November we'd never get there in time. The way a referendum could happen, if at all, and I'd have to do the research to determine, I don't know that we couldn't do it, but what you do is you contact the election department. You have to get it in within so many days of the actual election. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I know it's too soon now. A month away we would never be in time. The Election Bureau actually formulates the referendum question. We can give suggestions as the municipality, but we cannot actually draft the referendum question. Once the question has been accepted and they've drafted the question, it could possibly be on a spring ballot, but it will not be permissible to do it in November.
Excuse me, I believe, you may not know, but I know your dad knows, that
Yep.
we had a referendum on a recreation center years ago, and we were told at that time, I believe by him, that you could not put a referendum like this on the ballot. You could only put a referendum on the ballot if it involved the municipality borrowing money and going into debt. And I remember his words, he said, "You guys get elected to make the hard decision. But if it's going into debt, you are allowed to." So
there
that's
might-
what I remember, unless it's changed.
No, you're correct about debt. It also could possibly be for a governmental function. And so that's what I would have to look into to see if you could use that. And again, and I don't know if we'd even characterize this type of development as a governmental function, and that's a whole separate issue. But I would have to do the research on just exactly if you can do it, and then I know for sure you would not be able to get it on the November election.
Thank you.
That's all the questions I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Hempel. Does Commissioner Haggis have any questions he would like to add? Okay.
Commissioner Hempel, just so you know, I will get an answer for all of you. I will email Harry and let you guys all know about the referendum question.
I'm sorry, I do have one more question. If you don't mind, gentlemen.
Go ahead, Commissioner Hempel, you have the floor.
How many sports complexes have you guys developed?
This would be the fourth one our group has completed.
The fourth comparable sports complex?
I would say this would be the second comparable one, correct.
Okay. May I ask where the first one is?
Montour?
Montour? Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right. My first question was to the group. How did you even know the property was available? Was it from the end zone group reaching out to the township? And did you talk to anyone from the municipality before so saying the property would be available for a possible grant land lease?
Commissioner's phone.
Is the question, how did we find out or believe?
Yeah, I'm still here,
How
Ryan.
did you know that
Okay.
the parcel would be available for lease? We discussed
Yeah, so the information came from the End Zone Sports press release that came out. We saw that, you know, became known to us at that point. And that gave us the idea of, well, if this is available and they fall down, we would be there to be able to do this. We wanted to make sure our ducks were in a row. We were willing to throw our support behind that project. We just don't believe that they were going to be able to get to completion. But we would support that project if they were still going for it. I think they have a great program, and, you know, I want to see it get it done here. We're willing to throw our weight behind it.
Commissioner Haggis, have any other questions?
Yeah, I still had a concern, and maybe it's for the solicitor. I asked it before, but I know Solicitor Dice mentioned about having the lease as long as it is basically like a sale of property, where that might be a conflict where we're leasing the property for that many years without actually putting it up for bid.
Yeah, so there is the courts have determined that the government cannot lease or enter into a contract if, in fact, the parcel is used for a governmental function longer than, you can't tie the hands of the board or commissioners for too many years. It's not an exact number. However, if this project is proprietary, meaning that these individuals, it's separate and distinct from our functions, and that they're almost like independent contractors, they're earning their own money, making up, and we're acting more as a landlord and that's it, then in fact you can enter into a contract. You know, I can't say whether or not future boards or commissioners would frown upon it or not. You might have ones that think it's the greatest in the world, and you might have others that think it was the worst decision. That being said, because of the distinct nature of this, I would call this proprietary type of business, not us extending a governmental function. I know there's a lot of talk about opening things up for the public and possibly senior centers and things being free. And once you start getting into that realm, it becomes closer to a governmental function, and then you have legal terms, or the cases will not allow you to then contract out for greater periods of time because you're binding the hands of future councils. So it becomes you have to be very distinct in what you're doing and making sure that they remain proprietary if you choose to go into this with a lease, because once we start commingling government functions, the lease could be a voidable lease. And so I don't recommend doing that. And I understand individuals out here might want those types of free-based attributes to this parcel, but once we start commingling that, we could run into a voidable lease, if that makes sense. I don't know if that answered your question, Zach, but.
No, that was helpful. Thank you. My next question would be, what happens when the developers, we sign the lease and the developers find out that there might be too much excavation work, and then we're just end up with the River House complex and nothing else? There's no guarantees about a master plan that I requested. I think the plan the developers have proposed changed probably 5 or 6 times already. There's no guarantees a master plan would ever be built out or the property would be relinquished back to the township.
Yeah, the changes have been made to address specific concerns brought up by both commissioners and residents, hence the numerous drafts that have been presented. And that's really just taking in the community feedback, which I believe we've done, and we're happy to do that. We want something that fits for as many people as we can. As far as things being completed or one piece being completed and not the other, we have laid out our phases in the proposed lease that was made public, and the commissioners are here to hold us accountable to that. The township's here to hold us accountable to that. And if we're unable to meet those obligations and an amendment doesn't work for the township, at that point, there's no reason to continue on and move forward with it. The lease would be then terminated, and the property would revert back to the township unencumbered by that lease.
No, it's not at will. So it depends on the factual pattern to determine whether there's a default that it would return back to the municipality. It's speculation, and until we know what it happens, I can't tell you unless I know what the default is.
Yeah, the one other question I had about the subleasing, unless I missed it, and that would be my mistake, but there is no authority of the township to approve any type of sublease. I know we talked before about different groups subleasing fields and which I completely understand, but I believe the language will also give the developer approval to sublease the property that we lease to them to other developers, which I have major concerns about that as well.
I believe his question's on the subleasing.
Go ahead, sure.
Yeah, in section 12.2A of the ground lease, the tenant can freely execute subleases so long as the term doesn't extend past the expiration date of the term and the intended use of the sublessee doesn't violate any provision of applicable laws or any other deed restriction affecting the land. So those are the constraints for subletting.
Yeah, and I would say the one caveat in addition to that is that if any of the plans deviate from the master plan submitted, we have to come back for approval, and I think that would be applicable based on the design plan submitted.
I think, if I may, I think Commissioner Haggis was getting to the point of why are you not having the township approve those subleases?
The, each rental of a field is considered a sublease. Commissioner Gray mentioned about adding staff just to follow this process for zoning, which I think would be excessive. But if the case was every single sublease would require review and approval, the fields will never get used. I mean, it's going to be daily, weekly, monthly, annually. Like it'll be a constant process. So it's a little, we need the ability to operate freely, but within the confines of the design plan, and anything that deviates from that, we're going to be held accountable and we'll have to come for approval.
So if I'm understanding correctly, the subleases involve the actual rental of the field?
Amongst other things, there'll be lessors of the various buildings that we provided. We may sublease the concession stand for someone to run independently of ourselves. That's just one example. The baseball fields, the indoor baseball academy would be a subtenant. So those type of things, it aligns with our vision, I believe the township's vision as well, on the utilization of this facility. And if there's any deviation from that, we have to come back to the table, which I think is more than fair.
Commissioner Haggis, do you have anything else, please?
Yeah, one other one I brought up before about concerns about the public works accessing and using the facility. I don't know if the developers have thought any traffic or safety issues that might incur once the development was built out with public works with their access in and out of the property.
I believe the question was around the access for the public works in and out of the facility.
That will refer back to our PennDOT study, as we spoke on earlier, with adding the additional red light to the project. Once PennDOT comes back with the study, we'll understand what our requirements and restrictions are. We can't answer that for sure until we have that PennDOT study completed.
Does any other commissioner have anything else they would like to, any other questions they would like to ask? Seeing none, we are going to move to our citizens input section. I ask if you would like to speak, you sign the book at the podium. Before we begin with our comments, just a couple of things to remember. Comments must be related to the meeting's agenda. The comments must be made within the allotted time. We are going to allot 5 minutes per speaker. Commenters should not be abusive, harassing, or disruptive. This includes profanity, personal attacks, or threatening behavior. Comments should not be used to delay the meeting or promote a political agenda. Comments should be made to the board as a whole and not to individual members. And the public comment is a one-way communication to the board, and the public does not participate in a back and forth dialogue with the commissioners. At this point, I'm just waiting for the book.
Hello? Is it on? He said I can go in front of him because I had back surgery and I can't stay long. Is that okay? They might call us a week. I'll be quick. No, go ahead, man. Take your time.
Our first resident is Brian Carlton. I ask you come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
On or off? Oh, there it is. Yeah, I'm sorry. I asked him if I could speak in front of him because I had back surgery, so I'm trying to get out of here, and I'll keep this very short. The man in the middle between Josh and Adam, or, no, yeah, David. What's your name?
My name's John Altman.
Okay.
Counsel for NHT Sports
Okay,
Complex.
oh, you're the counsel for NHT?
Correct.
What firm do you work for?
Metz Lewis,
Where are they out of?
downtown,
Downtown Los Angeles?
Pittsburgh.
Okay, Pittsburgh, good. Good to know. So you said that the complex developers, if they had to spend a $300,000 commitment, then that would be unreasonable. I don't see that unreasonable. I mean, we're talking about, I mean, honestly, a $50-100 million project at the end of the day. Like, if you can't front that kind of money, there's something wrong. I mean, that's
Am I
a,
allowed to respond to the?
I'm not done
This
speaking
is a
yet.
question that's being put to me.
Can I speak first? And-
Yeah, sure, I just
and I'll
wanted
answer
to
your
make sure I
questions.
understood the.
I mean, in the construction business, that's a no shit. You know, it happens when you're on a project that size. The only question I have to the commissioners, you guys, is, am I able to lease this property for $1 a year for the next 126 years and build a complex myself? Because I didn't see anything advertised. I mean, maybe, if I missed something, please, please, please show me I did. Because I can afford $300,000 oh shit, if I get some backers.
Sure, so you said you're in construction.
No, I'm not, I'm a teacher.
Oh, I thought you said you were, I'm sorry.
I've been there.
Okay. So,
What's the matter what I do anyways?
no, I thought you said.
Maybe
that-
I'm just intelligent. I don't know.
I'm
Like,
sorry, I thought that you said you were in construction. That was.
no, I never
I
said
misheard
that.
that. Okay.
I mean, I've worked construction.
So.
I've owned
So have I.
construction businesses.
So have I. And so I'm the head of our real estate group. I've closed over 1,000 transactions with commercial developers. The way every single commercial development works is the developer, whether they
On
have.
public
Well,
property.
I let you finish. You let me finish. Excuse me.
You're representing me as a taxpayer.
I'm
Don't
not.
point your finger
I'm
at me.
representing my clients.
We will
To be
not
clear.
have that kind of behavior here. This is for citizens'
Right.
input, not for direct back and forth.
My-
He wanted to go
Yeah,
back and
my
forth, Jason.
only,
That's fine, but don't come at me when he wants to come at,
We
like,
will
it's fine.
offer citizens' input at this time only. There will be no conversation back and forth from the stage.
so,
Please
can
go
I,
ahead, Mr.
That's fine.
Am I-
I said my piece. Can I buy this property for $1 a year lease and build a sports complex?
What are you gonna do with
That's all
it?
I want to know.
what's
What?
your plan?
What's your plan? I'll get my 8-year to
We are
draw up
not
a better
having
plan than you
fourth
did on a
year,
piece of
sir.
crayon.
Mr. Carlton, please give me a second. Sir, we are not having back and forth dialogue with the citizens. If there's a question and we feel we need to direct it to you, we will. Go ahead, Mr. Carlton, I'm sorry.
Do the commissioners have any questions or comments? Because I would.
We'll have opportunity to address the comments at the end of the public comment period.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Goodness, I should have brought my glasses. Our next resident is Barbara Arendas, I believe. Maybe.
Is it on now? There we go. Good evening, everyone. My name is Barbara Arendas, and I live at 570 Kimlin Avenue, North Huntington, in the Kim Plan. I know, Mr. Atwood, you said that they cannot rebuttal anything that I say, but I missed who they are. They didn't introduce themselves in the beginning, so I would like to know who exactly they are, if that was possible.
Sure, you gentlemen can please introduce yourselves.
And-
Sure. My name is Josh Zugai, North Huntington resident, one of the developers on the project.
Hello, yeah, my name is Dave Ponsonby. I'm a North Huntington resident, as well as one of the developers on the project.
My name's John Altman. I'm counsel to NHT Sports Complex LLC.
Thank you, gentlemen. Also, I would like to thank the commissioners for, I sent emails to several of the commissioners, and I want to thank you for taking the time to get back to me. As far as, Josh Zugai and the gentleman on the end, I also played sports, and we took buses to different places. That was not a problem, okay? Now, Josh, you said you want your children to, you want to stay in the area to have sports for everybody. Do you live either on Kimlin, Charles, Christina Drive,
I have lived on Charles Drive for 41 years.
and you still live there?
Yes, ma'am.
How old are your children? Oh, sorry.
They're in elementary school.
Okay.
They're elementary school, middle school age.
Okay, well, I know it's not back and forth. I just want to let you know that I'm against the sports center. And also, you had mentioned, someone mentioned about a public vote. Is that going to happen?
Ma'am, this is not a
Okay.
back and forth dialogue. This is an opportunity to offer your input.
Okay, well, thank you, and please take into consideration, I'm voting no for the sports center. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next resident is Jane Pogue. Ask you come to this podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Jane Pogue, 671 Kimlin Avenue. I have lived on Kimlin for over 60 years. So I have seen all the development from Charles, the Kim Plan Playground, the whole scenario. So what I'm saying is we have seen all the changes that have gone on. Some of them have been very dangerous. My concern with whoever said the small minority of us who live, there are quite a few people and families involved in your decision-making. Now, when it was the Kim Plan Playground, it was very easy to walk down over the hill. We did it for years, sneaking into the drive-in, whatever. I am very concerned about the safety of the place once everything gets moving. Trees are not going to stop that noise. I'll tell you that right now. Especially if it's in the fall, in the winter, there are no leaves. You can get down through there very easily by walking. There's paths, and now there's that short street that supposedly they want to make into a shortcut to get down there. I'm saying that is very hard to protect. I'm concerned about the parking situation. Charles is a tough road to drive on anyhow because you come up from one end and the other end up to the middle, which is up higher. You can't see other cars coming until you're almost at the top of Charles. The problem is you get people who are parking everywhere, and it's going to happen if they have that short street, entrance in down, to the development. Having people come on Charles, having people come down on Orchard, having people go out at Brownstown because of the way traffic has to flow. These people live there, and the disruption is going to be to their lives, including the noise, including the lights. Remember, we went through the 250th anniversary, so we've already had a taste of what it's like to have all kinds of activities going on down there. And the way it's built, that noise echoes unbelievably, and unless you live where we do, and Josh is down further north, he's not even up where we are, it's very loud. And people will not be able to sit on their backyard if they're hearing screaming and yelling and loudspeakers announcing plays and everything else. That's what they're gonna have to listen to. You may have plans for all of this, but I'm saying this is what we are concerned with. Yes, we may be a small minority compared to the township, whoever said that, but I'm saying there are a lot of things that are going to be very much inconvenient to all of us that I don't think you've thought out. And if you don't live there, and many of you Commissioner Stone. First of all, thank you for so many of you that asked really good questions concerning, for our sake. If you don't live there, you're not going to hear this day in and day out. When we heard the noise from the 250th celebration, it was for a weekend. It was fine. We put up with the noise. We put up with the lights. We put up with the music. But louder than anything, we could hear that. Now you're asking us to put up with the same thing, and please don't tell me you're going to be able to dim that noise, because you're not. We're going to have to listen to that all the time. And I know there's some people here that are happy about that. You don't live there. So I'm asking you to please take into consideration, before you make such a monumental decision, thank you for taking more time with this, and think about the repercussions of the community, because they'll be calling you guys when people have hit their frustration level. Thank you.
Next resident is Sue Morgan. I ask you to come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please. Sue Morgan?
Hi. Thank you very much for taking these questions. Good evening to the commissioners and the gentlemen and guests. I would ask, please, that the president of the board please speak a little louder, because we keep losing you. On this thing, I would like to have two questions addressed. In today's society, we are concerned about violence. Violence in our schools and anywhere else that our families visit. Please, we can no longer this is a bedroom community, North Huntington Township, and it has been for many decades. We need to start to think about the security issues. And I would like to ask Josh to please define community.
Ma'am, this is not a dialogue. This is for citizens' input. You please offer your input.
Community is not necessarily the municipality where you live. It may mean people from other communities coming into where you live, okay? That, in today's society, we see shootings, we see all kinds of things, and it only takes one individual to ruin it for the rest of the people, or to bring other problems for our police force. This does not help the taxpayer of this particular community. So I thank you for all of the other issues that you have addressed here tonight, but that does concern me. Our school districts all have their own sports facilities, and it's not like some places in first-class city counties that don't. So I will thank you all again. You have a good evening, but I will say one last item. When my children went to school and they wanted to participate in sports, I drove to Irwin. Is that too far? Irwin Borough. My daughter, who wanted to participate in dance, I drove to Pittsburgh every day. Sometimes in life, we have to make choices. And sometimes that choice is that you have to drive to Monroeville or Greensburg to get a job, or to take your kids to participate in these activities. So I will thank you again, and you have a good evening.
Our next resident is Kristen Bavalek. Ask you please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Kristen Bavalek, 11659 Appaloosa Court. Commissioners, I stand before you today to urge you to approve the proposed sports complex. As you've heard my opinion in the past, I'm not going to waste your time. I'll keep this short. I understand there are concerns and disapproval from some members of our community, and I believe that the long-term benefits of this facility far outweigh the short-term resistance. It seems like every new change comes with resistance. People don't want a Walmart. I think people use the Walmart. People don't want a cell phone tower, which was me. And guess what? I ended up with a whole Kerber Farms in my backyard. Was I happy about that? No. But it's not just about me. It's about what you guys decide is best for our community. And so, the sports facility will not only provide a safe and positive environment for our youth to engage in physical activity and sports, but it will also bring our community together. I was just in Cranberry and watched a bunch of people participating in pickleball tournament at their community park. I didn't see a bunch of riffraff. I didn't see fighting. I saw people having a good time, exercising, and I had to drive an hour for that. There are so many communities near us that have way less children with huge facilities. Penn Township, Peters Township. Sorry, I'm not from here. I'm from Minnesota, where I don't have to get up and fight for things. They just show up for me. So my point is, I would love to see that here and more in North Huntingdon. I want that for us. And I'm surprised that people don't, that people are thinking about just themselves. It would also create jobs, boost local businesses, contribute to the overall well-being of our residents. I acknowledge the concerns raised by some members of our community. However, it's important to consider the greater good that this facility will bring to our community as a whole. I urge you to consider the potential positive impact that this will have on our community and approve its construction. Instead of finding all the negative impacts this could have, I urge you to think big picture and work together with our community to make it a better place for everyone. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Our next resident is Rosemary Hook.
Hi, my name is Rosemary Hook. I live at 1941 Ivanhoe Drive, North Huntingdon Township. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Rosemary Hook. I already read that part, sorry. This is my first time. So I'm a youth pastor in the local church, and I'm also a mother of 2 young boys, 9 and 11. I thank you for the opportunity to speak in favor of this sports complex, a project that represents more than just brick and mortar. It's an investment in the health, unity, and future of our community. I understand that there are concerns, and I respect the voices of those who oppose it. However, I believe that rejecting this opportunity would be an akin to burying our talents, much like in the parable of the gifted talents. I'm a pastor, so I'm going to get biblical. I apologize if you don't agree. In the Bible, we are reminded of a master who entrusts his servants with talents. It's a form of currency. 2 of the servants invest and multiply what they are given. The third, fearing risk, buries his talents in the ground. When the master returns, he praises the first 2 for their wisdom and courage, but rebukes the third for his inaction. The lesson is clear. We are called not just to preserve what we have, but to grow it, to build upon it for the greater good. Our community has been gifted with resources, land, talents, and the opportunity to enhance our lives through this sports complex. To shy away from this project, to bury these resources out of fear, is a disservice to the potential we have to create a vibrant, healthier future for all of us, especially our youth and the next generation. Those opposed may argue that it's a financial risk or that it'll bring in noise or traffic, but to focus on the short-term inconveniences without considering the long-term benefits is to act like the servant who buries his talent, afraid to take the risks necessary for growth. We must ask ourselves, are we going to be a community that clings to the past and cowers in fear of change, or one that invests in the future and the next generation coming after us? I ask you, has anyone surveyed the youth that will benefit most from this complex? I have. I've surveyed my students, and they had no influence one way or another, and I simply asked them what a complex like this would mean to them and their peers, and to give reference, they're 6th graders through 12th graders in this community. It was a unanimous vote in favor of. To deny the next generation this opportunity for growth simply because of our superficial inconveniences is selfish. This complex will provide our youth with a place to grow, to channel their energy, and to develop essential life skills such as teamwork, discipline, and perseverance. It will attract visitors, boosting our local economy, and become a gathering space where neighbors can connect, building bonds that make our community even stronger. The complex is not just about sports. It's about stewardship. It's about taking the talents we have been given, the resources, the opportunity, and investing them in something that will yield fruit for generations to come. Just as the two wise servants in the parable were rewarded for their courage to build, we too will reap the rewards of a stronger, healthier, more connected community if we move forward with this project. Let's not be the servant who buries his talents. Let's invest in our future, the next generation, and take steps forward and build something that will make a lasting, positive impact for generations to come. Thank you.
Our next resident is Heather Atwood. Come to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, I'm Heather Atwood. My address is 2245 George Street in North Huntington. Thank you for allowing to speak this evening. In an effort of transparency, I am President Atwood's wife, but I am also a tax-paying citizen, and the views that I'm going to speak upon tonight are solely my own. I'm speaking tonight in support of the sports complex, as I believe that it is an invaluable asset to our community. Sports are a huge part of my family. My son plays football and basketball and wants to take up baseball next spring. My daughter is a cheerleader and a dancer. These activities have not only allowed my children to have fun, but they teach them invaluable lessons that, God willing, they will carry into adulthood. Sports teach children how to be part of a team, to be something bigger than themselves. They teach resilience, determination, courage, interpersonal relationship skills, personal empowerment, personal responsibility, goal setting, work ethic, empathy, self-control, and personally something that I think is so important, how to fail. All of this and the physical health benefits as well. I know that a lot of you are thinking, well, I didn't have a sports complex growing up. Why can't kids just play in the neighborhood parks? I would like to ask you, why can we not want better for our children? Why can we not want safer options for our children? And unfortunately, neighborhood parks are a concept of the past. It is a healthy and typical thought to process. It is a healthy and typical thought process to want to better for the next generation, to progress our community, to leave things better than you found them. As communities continue to evolve in 2024 and beyond, youth sports should play a significant role when elected officials respond to the needs of their community. Communities, including ours, will always need to be evolving and reinventing themselves. If communities are not growing, they are dying. Each weekend in the fall, we travel for my son's football games. I understand what you're going to say, and I completely understand that commitment, and I know what it is when I sign up for it. Last weekend, we traveled to Graham Park in Seneca Valley, which is a private partnership funded by Dick's Sporting Goods. Something I have realized and learned is that driving tourism and visitors in communities have significant impact on the vitality of them. The communities with assets and facilities that are not proactively attracting those events and participants made up of families in their community tend to be more vibrant, spur economic growth, and drive a higher tax base in the community. According to the sports ETA, tourism sector had a direct spending impact of $39.7 billion in 2021 and expects to reach $77.5 billion by 2026. Pennsylvania is listed as the number 4 of the highest revenue intake of youth sports tourism, according to Forbes. Like proudly displayed storefronts, beautiful green spaces, or multi-sports facilities, like the potential NHT Sports Complex, it can be an anchor for an entire community and its visitors. Investing in these areas bring in more economic opportunity and can improve the quality of life for those in and around the community. Local restaurants, accommodations, and stores are often bolstered by sports tourism. This section of Route 30 has 25 empty or current for sale lease lots. Why would we not want to entice business to come and revitalize these lots? Communities can be improved in every measurable way by existence of a healthy and vibrant sports, recreation, and park ecosystem. In closing, I ask you to look at the broad picture with this complex. This facility can and will improve our reputation, increase property values, boost our local economy, and continue to grow our community. Thank you.
Our next resident is Jessica Zugai.
Hi, I'm Jessica Zugai. My address is 140 Charles Drive. I am married to Joshua Zugai. He's one of the developers. For decades, the residents of North Huntington Township have expressed a clear and unwavering desire for more recreational programming. Studies conducted in 1970, 2002, and 2022 consistently affirm this wish. Our community craves spaces for gathering, for recreation, and for building a vibrant sense of togetherness. In 2010, the Norwin Area Regional Recreational Committee, a coalition of Irwin, North Huntington, the school board, and AARP, recognized this urgent need by commissioning a feasibility study from a third-party environmental planning and design, which completed its assessment under the guidelines of the PA Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. What they found was that the cost of establishment and acquisition would be about $18 million. The report identified 4 sites, one of which was Public Works. It also proposed a path forward, a public-private partnership to help fund the venture, potentially aligning with healthcare entities to share the financial burden. Fast forward to today, and we find ourselves at a critical juncture. In 2011, a referendum was held concerning tax dollar support for community recreational facility, but the votes voted against this. It revealed a hesitation to fund public amenities through taxes. Unfortunately, this vital undertaking was removed from the school board agenda almost immediately thereafter, and that stifled the potential progress. Soon after that, attempts to partner with Excella and with the YMCA proved unsuccessful. Hope persisted. In 2016, the Norwin Lacrosse Club president approached the board with the ask that she needed more space, more recreational space for the lacrosse team. She said that the Norwin fees were too high for the club team to pay. The commissioners hesitated to commit to any indoor facilities, but they did discuss alternatives, and they considered revamping some of the public parks that were already existing. In 2017, the Parks and Recreation Department allocated funds to hire environmental planning and design, once again, for the Comprehensive Park Improvements Plan. They pledged $3 million over 10 years. This initiative has great potential, targeting improvements that align with community wants, including trails and athletic fields. However, has enough been done? The community still yearns for additional athletic fields, walking trails, field lighting, and splash pad. The urgency surrounding recreational needs reached new heights in February 2022, when it was suggested that we should revisit the community rec center. Yet, faced with administrator resource limitations and ongoing concerns, progress waned. By April 2023, when a resident proposed establishing the recreational center for youth, the response was mixed. The sentiment against the township operating such facilities arose once more due to concerns about cost and convenience. Yet, the feasibility study from 2010 identified the public works site as a potential game changer, a location favorable for community access. In May of 2023, North Huntington took another leap by allocating $50,000 to hire a consulting engineer for a master plan for Oak Hollow Park, aiming to utilize both state and township funding. Plans for a multi-purpose field, walking track, additional amenities, while promising, have struggled to gain traction due to the pressing township issues. In February of 2024, an article in the Tribune said that the township nixed the multipurpose field due to the $3 million price tag, but they did apply for grants to put in pickleball courts. Prior to that, in August of 2023, the North Huntington Comprehensive Plan was adopted, reflecting key areas of focus, bringing people together, improving recreational programming, and enhancing connectivity. All of these principles strongly align with the proposed project from NHT Investment Partners. By utilizing underdeveloped public lands, we can invigorate our community, foster local businesses, and create spaces for gathering. Rather than allowing historical apprehension to dictate our future, now is the time for change. Let's harness the power of public-private partnerships, an approach that the township has not fully embraced in the past, but has proven beneficial in other ventures. If we continue down the path of indecision, we jeopardize the very community our residents have yearned for since 1970.
Thank you,
Since
Sue Guy.
somebody has set a timer, I'm just going to close by saying this proposal can build, doesn't just build growth, but it builds progress toward a vibrant community equipped to uphold and enhance excellent services for the township residents, as well as local and regional business networks, and that is the mission statement from the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Our next resident is Joe Sitson. Ask you state your name and address for the record, please.
John Nybert, 451 Charles Drive. I'm speaking tonight again as Joe Citizen. I'm speaking to protect our son and our neighbors. We're not speaking against the idea of a sports complex. We're speaking against where the complex is located. It is located in an area that will destroy our neighborhood and endanger our citizens. I'm going to go through the snapshots I went through last time quickly. Our son, he's walked every day. He walks every day, rain or shine. Doesn't matter the temperature. He has walked for years. He's walked more years than most of you people have been alive sitting on this board. He said, I want to walk. I don't want so many cars in our neighborhood. He walks like Forrest Gump runs. A little boy's out in front of our house. His brother's getting on the school bus. He tries to break out of the arms of his mother, who holds him back protectively so he doesn't dash out into traffic. There's an elderly, frail couple slowly walking in the summer, enjoying the fresh air and the sunshine. There's young mothers who are taking their babies in strollers, going down our streets. The children ride their bikes. There's many others ride and walk on our neighborhood streets. All these precious lives are now gravely endangered by the proposed construction of a sports complex abutting our safe neighborhood by opening our streets to extreme, excessive traffic. I heard something tonight I never knew, and that is they're not going to open any streets in this neighborhood. Well, if that's the case, then that needs to be put in perpetuity as a legal clause that there's never any streets open for this complex. And if that's not done, this complex should not be existing. I'm going to give you the rest of this talk on the presumption that the streets will be open. Until I see it in writing, in perpetuity, in a document that's legal, I don't believe it. And nobody else should. Our streets have no sidewalks. There are no white lines painted for bike lanes. I sit out in front of our house and I see motors going through the stop sign, not stopping, making right turns illegally. A few years ago, a motorist on icy roads ended up in our front yard. He came back in the spring, surprisingly, to repair the damage done to the grass. Can you imagine how much more significantly the danger is to all the individuals in the neighborhood with extreme excessive traffic if the streets are open for this proposed complex? The proposal for the complex is grounded in greed. Greed is something, when somebody wants something too much, is obsessed by it. The greed in the proposed complex makes a few bucks for a few people and destroys a neighborhood. It juxtaposes money against endangering the lives of neighbors. It's equivalent to white colonists giving Indians $24 worth of trinkets in exchange for valuable New York City land. In this case, it's trinkets in exchange for targets on people's backs. It is likely also grounded in the constituents of desensitization, narcissism, and possibly hubris. Americans have become desensitized to murder and the loss of life. Life is no longer precious. 22,000 people were murdered in the United States in 2022. 400 have been shot in schools. 5 warnings of red flags arose in the Georgia shooting, but it still happened. Only one person saved lives. That was a girl who listened to her mother's instructions to look somebody up and down. And she did, the shooter, and she saw that he had a gun. She did not let him in the classroom. And she did not get shot, nor did her classmates. Narcissism. Narcissus in Greek mythology was a youth who loved to see his reflection when he went to get a drink of water. He loved himself so much in the reflection that he couldn't leave looking at himself until he died. Hubris is pride.
Your time is up. I ask that you finish up, please.
Yes, I will. What I'm trying to say is, do not endorse this project. Listen and be like the girl that didn't let the shooter in. Reject the project. Protect the neighbors. Protect the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next resident is John Toposic. I ask you to state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is John Toposic, and I live at 571 Janet Drive. I just want to speak a bit tonight about the potential increased traffic and safety in our neighborhoods. Currently, neighbors freely walk the streets day and night without fear of being hit by another vehicle. The only reason to be in our neighborhood is because you live there. And because of that, the neighbors watch out for one another. Parents have little to no fear of sending their child to another child's home and wondering if they're going to be hit by a vehicle. We have had a lot of turnover in recent years, and the neighborhood is full of young children playing in the streets. In addition, we have a lot of elderly that enjoy taking their dogs on walks throughout the neighborhood. Parents pushing strollers without a care in the world, with their children by their side, riding their bikes closely behind. Currently, there are 3 access roads that lead into the proposed sports complex from the Taylor Ridge Charles plan, one on the backside of Meadow and one on the Skellytown plan. Any access to the sports complex from any one of these access roads would be devastating to our neighborhood. We're not just talking about a couple homes in a remote part of the township, we were talking about a densely populated area with hundreds of homes. This would not just affect a vocal minority, but a whole neighborhood. We keep hearing that there are going to be no roads leading to our neighborhood, but where in the lease does it state that there will not be any access to the sports complex from our neighborhood? As John had just mentioned, we would like to see that in the lease in perpetuity, that there will be no access to this complex from any one of our streets in the Taylor Ridge, Kimlin area.
John, I think that's a great idea, and we're going to do that.
Okay,
We agree.
we want that. That's what we're here for.
Yep, thank you.
So phase one of the lease states that there will be no new access roads for the public work. There will be a new access road for public use only. We're still not 100% sure where that's going. There's been talk about where this thing's going. The only logical place that we can think of is on Cadence Drive. If that would be opened up, Cadence Drive, that would be absolutely, our infrastructure just can't handle it. It's a residential area. We can't be letting these triaxles and these large trucks into our residential areas. Also, Route 30 is in complete mess, especially in the area that leads into the sports complex. This is by far the most dangerous section of the township. And we want to see an increase, and do we really want to see an increase in traffic in that area? Every week I sit on the back of my porch and I hear sirens going off, and I know exactly what's going on. There's another accident in that area. I keep hearing about the lease needs to be signed first before anybody will do anything, and that's just insane. Why sign a lease before you even know if PennDOT's going to be okay with it? If PennDOT shuts it down, it's easy for you just to walk away. You're just paying $1 anyways. So it's very easy. A year from now, PennDOT comes back and says, no to the project. Do you still own the property at that point? Do you still lease it for $1 a year? What do we do in that instance? This facility will be driving hundreds of folks from outside of our area with no regard to our community and what North Huntington is all about. Imagine a huge soccer tournament at 3 p.m. on a random Saturday, and parents are late. Do you honestly think they are going to come to a complete stop at a stop sign at the corner of Orchard and Charles Drive? No, they're going to roll through the stop sign so they can get to the game. Route 30 will become even more dangerous, and speeding from outside teams trying to get to their games will increase as well. This is an absolute worst area of Route 30 to have this project located. Commissioners, I ask that you not rush into this project because the lease is just way too vague at this time, and more studies need to be done on the traffic in our area. This lease does not specify anywhere that there will be no access to the property other than from Route 30. We cannot allow any access to this property from our neighborhood roads. Please take safety that we currently enjoy into consideration with this project. And then I have one other comment. My wife, her name is Kristen Toposic. She had forwarded a document on one of the local social media sites, the North Huntington sites, and that was not well received by Mr. Josh Ugai. He made a comment that said, "You've been so warned." I'm just trying to figure out, Mr. Zugai, what does "you've been so warned" state? Why was that commented towards my wife?
Wow.
Yeah, good question.
Wow.
Am I allowed to address that?
Yes, I will.
He doesn't have to answer. I just want to let everybody know that that comment was it made? Absolutely made, and the
Yes,
comment was immediately deleted after
It was
that.
made in regard to someone knowingly spreading false information after multiple conversations to give the correct information, which I believe the legal definition that's libel.
Okay, so she's been warned. Just want to let everybody know that my wife has been warned. Thank you.
Our next resident is Rich. Oh, yeah, Rich Sanowski, sorry. Couldn't read your last name.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Rich Sanowski. I live at 8064 Pennsylvania Avenue, Straw Pump, Pennsylvania. I have several concerns about the proposal sports complex. Looking at the complex layout, I see a 93,000 square foot building for multiple use. If this is for multiple use, why would it be a turf floor? If it's going to be a turf floor, it'd be for soccer and football, would be the main reasons for this complex. Basketball will not be part of the 93,000 square foot building as I see it. I see a 16,000 square feet building as proposed for basketball. My question to Josh and David is, how many courts is this going to accomplish? And when will this court be built? I see in your flyer that you sent out, it says on here, quoting, "In fact, it will take several $1 million and many, many years to move dirt." So what are we talking at time-wise? Looking at the lease, you're looking for a 29-year lease, 3 options to extend to 29 years, totaling 116 years lease. You're proposing $1 a year lease, which is which is guaranteed to this complex will be fit to you for 29 years. Now, if it doesn't work, the township's stuck with this property. We have no remorse once we sign the lease. I lived in North Huntington for 71 years and paid taxes for 51 years. My tax dollars and all the citizens in this room that are taxpayers purchased that land that we're looking at this existing site. If not, does the lease, I had it to be subdivided, but you'd made that it's not subdivided, it's just leased. So my concern was, if the lease of the developer of 42 acres, this is the main concern for all existing buildings and taxpaying citizens. So it doesn't affect the existing buildings, the way I understand it, the municipal buildings. Mr. Zona, you spoke at the last meeting about the complex, which was nice, and you made a comment that you have no children and you love the complex because it's great for youth. What about our senior citizens that pay taxes in this community? What use are we going to have out of this? Mrs. Bevan, you must have concern for your residents who pay taxes and live in these adjacent properties. With 5 outdoor complexes, you're going to have softball, you're going to have soccer, you're going to have basketball. Lights and noise at night will be a major concern, and this will probably go on for 9 to 10 years. And what's the guarantee that they're going to stop at 9 o'clock? There's nothing in writing that says they're going to stop at 9 o'clock. Like these residents concerned about noise and that noise could go on forever. If you're leasing this for value of making money, time's not going to be value. It's going to be money, not time, not 9 o'clock. We know that. And Mr. Gray stated again that youth and seniors of North Huntington, what are they going to benefit from this building? And again, back to the 93,000 square foot building and complex, my concern is to Josh and Dave, is there any basketball courts in that facility, or is it just a turf floor for soccer and football? Commissioners, again, please keep in mind, all taxpayer citizens, we are all, as well as yourself, willing to sign over a 42 lease for $1 a year. Are we willing to do that? Let's make some common sense here. Josh, I don't know if you're aware of it, and David, the Express building is for sale up here by the turnpike. That would do a great facility for you guys. It'd save you a lot of money. You could turn that into a court. There's parking, there's adjacent fields and that. You could develop that rather than using the township property. Again, my concern is that we not approve this, and I would like you commissioners to pray about this before you make your decision. Thank you very much.
Just to make one point of order, the township does have a noise ordinance that is already in effect, nobody is subject to a exemption from that. Yes, there is time in the noise ordinance. Our next resident is Barry Limpo. Ask you to come to state your name and address for the record.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Barry Limpo, 960 Castleview Drive, Irwin, PA, in Altman Farms. No relation, I don't think, to the council there. I'm here to speak in support of the sports complex. I have a 10-year-old son who's active in sports, in football, basketball, as well as wrestling. So I've seen firsthand the need for more sports facilities. In basketball, trying to find court time is incredibly difficult for the rec team. Times are inconvenient, locations are challenging. In football, right now, youth football, is able to use St. Agnes's field. It's unclear, if that's a permanent scenario or not. I do understand as well that the high school stadium is likely to be renovated, in which case that field would then be unavailable for facilities. So we really have a limited number of fields for all of the children that we have here that want to be active in sports. And it really does limit how many times we can practice. So there is a clear need. I want to speak a little bit about Josh Zugai. I met him 2 years ago. He was my son's basketball coach. And excuse me? He was my son's basketball coach, and you could tell he was dedicated to developing these kids to be not just better athletes, but better people. He is now a coach for my son for football, and he's also a coach for high school football. So he is coaching 2 different teams currently. You can see him Friday nights with a headset on, coaching high school football. This is a man who has dedicated his life to youth sports. This isn't some fly-by-night outfit who's coming in here to make money. That's not his primary goal. It's clear that he is a good man who just wants to make this community better for youth sports. And that is abundantly clear. Some other people had mentioned the Cranberry Sports Complex. I had the opportunity to go up there last week for football. And a beautiful facility, very similar type of arrangement, I believe, of a public-private organization. We drove by the Parks and Rec building. Great facility. When I was up there, I didn't just come right back home. I stopped and had dinner. That's something that people that were coming in, to this facility would be able to inject additional money into this by using the businesses. Hopefully revitalize that section of 30 that is, is really, not nearly as active as the side towards Walmart. There's benefits here for the entire community. There's outdoor soccer, football, baseball, indoor baseball, pickleball, tennis. So there's a little bit for everybody. In addition, there's an outdoor trail, there's a bike trail. So there are benefits for everyone, not just the children. Adults can certainly use the trails. In conclusion, I don't want us to miss out on this amazing opportunity where we are able to let them use land that is unused currently, and they will invest $30 million into making our community better. I do know for certain that the people who are against this would not be interested in raising taxes to pay for a similar facility. So here we have land that's unused that we could turn into something that's precious, something that could be good for generations to come, instead of letting it squander and sit there and be used for nothing. So I thank you for your time, but this is the right people, the right project, in the right time. Thank you.
Our next resident is Emily, and I'm going to apologize, Gindelsberger.
Yeah, close enough. Everybody harasses. I'm sorry. All right. It's Gindelsberger, close enough. I live in down on Roth Drive, Ward 4. I'm here. We'll start with the easy stuff. I'm in the camp of sell the property. In this lease, even if you wanted to have a lease, I would not agree to this lease because this lease is ridiculous. To the developers, maybe I really should tell you guys a little history about myself. I was actually on that intergovernmental agreement. I was involved with the creation of the feasibility plan. Excella wasn't involved. They owned one of the properties. We weren't going to have an agreement with the township. We were purchasing the property. YMCA was only involved because we were questioning them on how they got their funding. They were more than happy to use us as a satellite, but they wanted to use us so they could jack up the membership to offset the cost of the free memberships that they give in downtown. We promised everybody back then that it wouldn't raise the taxes either, that we just wanted the township to back the bond so we could get the funding to do the groundbreaking, and we would have had it done way sooner than what you guys are looking at. It would have had 3 different inside pools. The pictures are probably still up at the township if anybody is really interested in it. The referendum, as they always get mutilated, and the township was really sore because they couldn't repeal the library tax, and they didn't want the threat of another tax on top of them. And that is the primary reason why that referendum was voted down. I, to this day, still think that we could have done it without taxpayer money. Unfortunately, there's some people who are involved in this project right now that really didn't want to listen to my opinions. I come from the camp of worst-case scenario and then try to protect against it. So the worst-case scenario on this is, and I do disagree, that if you tie the township's hands with a one-year lease in perpetuity for 100-plus years, that is violating. It should be a bid, even the lease should be up for bid. The contingency clause has nothing in it. The township is required to provide all sorts of surveys and documents, which they already have on the land. They are not required to provide us anything. They are not, where there's no way for us to escape out of that. So if we can call it off, and, hey, it's just not in the paperwork. Put it in the paperwork. The taxes. You guys really need to clarify the taxes. Because my understanding is if the township owns the property, there's no taxes. There's no property tax. There's no school tax. Okay? There is no income tax, potentially, even though we have a business ordinance. I'm not exactly sure how that goes towards rents. And if this lease is given to the Riverhounds, which it says clearly in this document that the lease can be given to someone else, either through a mortgage assumption if they fail on their lender, or by voluntarily giving it away, if they don't live in the community, who's paying that taxes? They get the rental money from everything? And is that going to be Allegheny gets the benefit? So that really needs to be clarified and posted. The insurance, as it is stated in this agreement, is a unique insurance policy to this project area for $1 million in injury and liability, and also for all of the structures. All right? How about we try to get an insurance quote from an insurance company not related to anybody on the commission, and make that the lease agreement, so at least they are covering our portion of what would have to be paid on the insurance. The splash pad, Mr. Zubai, you just posted today on Facebook, that's not part of the plan. That was at a request of Parks and Rec. Okay, if it's not part of the plan and you're only preparing the land for Parks and Rec, that means Parks and Rec is going to be responsible for it. That means tax money. Your ordinances, guess who has to go out and try to enforce them? Our police. So there we go, more police resources. So again, sell it or go get that other piece of property that gentleman just mentioned. Or maybe I'll just up Mr. Carlton's bid and I'll bid you $5 a year, cash in hand, for the next 29 years. And do nothing with the property, so none of those neighbors have to worry about anybody infringing on them. And the one last thing, we did ask the state. The state said they would never put a red light there because there are too many red lights on Route 30 as it is. So that was also.
Your time has expired, ma'am. Thank you.
No, thank you. I guess I need to marry somebody, right?
Our next resident is Kristen Benzik. The name was Kristen Benziak.
It's Bezic, thank you.
Sorry about that.
Hi, that's okay. I just have a couple different concerns than she had. I'm for a facility. I just think the location is terribly poor. I think the groundwork and development, it'll be extensive. It'll be years before your children will ever be able to use the facility. So I know you guys are anxious to get your kids up and playing on this property. It could be like 8, 10 years we're talking about here. I mean, there's no real time frame for this. I also think this could potentially create some competition for organizations that are already in existence, like PAL and NCAA. I've been a coach, like a longtime coach for PAL for years. Enrollment is down, and so it creates a lot of competition for those organizations that are struggling too. I just don't know how that all plays out, but I'm just like throwing that out to you guys that we have plenty of soccer fields here. It's going to create more competition for the soccer, baseball, softball facilities. I mean, if you put some different things in there, great, like lacrosse, but I don't know.
I'm just saying, I'm just mentioning that as a longtime coach of PAL. There's a lot, I think, in it for you guys, but there's just not much for us. There's been no traffic assessment yet, and to inform how the additional traffic will impact Route 30. I know Jason mentioned traffic plans are already in place for this section of Route 30 under PennDOT's Route 30 projects. According to PennDOT, which was contacted via email, there's no current plans beyond Carpenter Lane to build a barrier. The barrier will only be from Route 48 to Carpenter Lane. That's their first phase. That's going to be in years to come, okay? So that is just 48 to Carpenter Lane. So there won't be a barrier across that highway to prevent people from getting killed. We're talking about moms in minivans, and I think I directly messaged you and talked to you about that on Facebook. So, I mean, these are people that are like hurrying to games, could potentially get, entire families could get waxed there. There's 6 deaths recently at the Flynn's Tire. So just take that in consideration. These are young families crossing a major highway, okay? There was under Exhibit E, the phasing plan, the 4 bullet points, the installation of new access roads for public works use. I don't know how you guys are going to work that out. You guys swear that there's not going to be other access to this facility. There's going to have to be for triaxles for the employees that work at the public works. I'm not sure how you're saying that this could never happen. Just lastly, there's a lot of other properties up for sale. Like I said, I'm for this. I just think you guys should seek elsewhere, okay? I think there's Tanglewood Stables is up for sale. We have New England Freight. We have Express Scripts. I mean, you guys have a lot of options. So I just think taxpayers really, I think we should sell the property if we need to, or just strictly leave it be. Taxpayers just don't want to be landlords at this point. Like I said, I'm for the complex, and if there's no PennDOT light approval, this should never, ever be considered. Never. Shouldn't be an option.
Our next resident is Melissa Funyak. Ask you to state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Melissa Funyak. I live at 260 Charles Drive. I live at the top of Charles Drive. My husband and I moved here when our children were young in 2002. In 2007, Chesterfield's was torn down, and the whole hillside was basically devastated, and they built Walgreens, which lasted maybe a couple of years. You know, I think it might have been you, Mr. Atwood, at one of the meetings said that it's like a fishbowl there, how it's built. That's how I always describe our neighborhood. We moved to North Huntington out of Allegheny County to get to, a better community. We love North Huntington. But that's how I always describe my community, or my neighborhood, is it's a fishbowl. We're exposed to Route 30. The noise and light pollution is terrible. There should have been better zoning and ordinances that required Walgreens to put a tree barrier, a buffer. The study that PennDOT did said that there were 11,000 cars a day that travel Route 30. That's a lot of noise. That's a lot of light. In my kitchen at night, it's like directly across from Lincoln Way, the intersection, the headlights are in my kitchen at night. I'm not opposed to this, just like the woman before me said, to this kind of a facility. I think it's well needed and welcomed, but it's the location of it. And there is no way that you're going to be able to mitigate the light and the noise at that end. It's just going to open everything up for us now. They built the digital billboard there. I can't sit on my front porch at night. It's like Vegas. I mean, I understand that you can't control, trees being taken down, but you can control and do better with ordinances that will require businesses to care about the community they're moving into. So it's just the location of this. The noise and the light is going to be horrible, and I am 100% concerned about the traffic. I mean, Circleville is out all of the time with accidents, and how many violent and deadly accidents have happened on that stretch from Carpenter Lane to Jacktown Hill. I mean, just tons of them. And we just don't need this here in this location, but thank you.
Our next resident is, looks like John Ferrico? Ferrico?
Let's go.
Fetzko? Sorry about that.
Oh, I don't have good writing. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. My name is Jim Fetzko. I reside at 490 Charles Drive. Starting with addressing a commissioner's post on social media on the Everything Norwin Facebook page dated September 30th, there were statements made on this site that related to two topics from an email I sent to the commissioners on September 28th. In short, they were Route 30 access and neighborhood access to both the sports complex and the public works, in addition to safety of those accesses. Quoting the commissioner on the first statement, he says traffic plans are already in place for this section of Route 30 under PennDOT's Route 30 projects. Go to the project website to learn about it. An alternate access for Route 30 has been discussed, end quote. I went to Route 30 projects website before and after the post. Per Route 30 projects, there is no traffic plans in place with PennDOT other than from Route 48 to Carpenter Lane, with construction starting in late 2027 and ending in 2030. If there was an alternate access to Route 30 for the sports complex that was discussed, it was not discussed with the citizens. The only representation of Route 30 is on a rendering of the site plan that was submitted with the lease and a recently updated plan. There was also a statement made by Mr. Zugai on social media that there will only be Route 30 access to the complex, nothing officially documented in the lease. Quoting the commissioner on the second statement, he says, "This is false and has been fabricated. First off, there is no phase one plan yet. We are still working on concept master plans. Secondly, in the plans, there is no motor vehicle access or parking in the adjacent neighborhoods. The only access suggested was from Friends of Norwin Trails, adding bike and walk trails to the community to access," end quote. This is not false or fabricated. The phase one plan is in Exhibit E, the last page of the lease. True, there are no adjacent neighborhood vehicle access roads shown on the current or previous site plans, but that is not an official document guaranteeing it's not going to happen. Second, I did not say the neighborhood roads would be used for parking. I stated that the complex does not seem to have enough parking if several events were to occur simultaneously. I used the Centennial as an example that our roads were used as overflow and foot traffic. Therefore, there is the potential that this could happen if multiple events occurred simultaneously at the complex. So with that said, as in my email, I would like to request the following. One, currently there is no wording in the lease that states the leasee cannot develop access roads that abut the proposed lease property for traffic egress. These access roads potentially could merge into Clifton, Charles, Janet, Tiffany, Maple, Hamilton, Post, and possibly Meadows roads. For safety and privacy of our neighborhoods, in addition to the PennDOT not having a plan for the sports complex, these roads potentially could be used if not protected by the lease. I know there is Saldo, the ordinance for land development that could keep this from happening, but there is no saying that it could not be amended in special circumstances. As residents, we would like wording in the lease that would protect these potential neighborhood roads from becoming traffic egress for the sports complex. Two, access for the public works facility. It was stated in Exhibit E, Phase 1 of the lease, that the new road would be installed for the public works facility. There is no plan for a road exclusively for the public works. Will this public works share a road with the complex or the neighbors? A statement was made on social media lobbying for the support of the complex saying, and I quote, "Public staff can't be bothered by kids and the sports complex traffic." Think about what a completely unfounded statement that is. These are people that keep all your roads safe, rain, snow, and shine. I would say it's more like they don't want to be in an accident involving a child. As residents, we would like wording in the lease that would protect the aforementioned neighborhoods from becoming egress for the public works facility. If it is being stated on several social media sites, preliminary site plans, and verbal instances that the neighborhood roads will not be used, why can't the wording be added to the lease and make it binding? I ask our Ward 6 Commissioner, can you please support these requests and assure that these are added to the lease to protect the safety and privacy of our neighborhood? Thank you.
Our next resident is Leah McGee.
Hi, Leah McGee. I live at 149 Skellytown Road. So I'm glad there was a person here that worked on the feasibility study because it seemed a little misleading the way it's been represented. It was not a plan to hand over our land to a private company to do whatever they want. It actually involved the community members in the North Huntington community who made the feasibility study and were planning to do a community center for the community. Within that study, they even have preferred activities that they mention that the people completed surveys on. They surveyed the community members to see what they wanted in this center, not displayed what the developers wanted to put into the complex. Those three things were swimming. The top three preferred items were swimming, fitness programs, and exercise classes. This only fulfills one of those three. So if we're going to go off of what is in the feasibility study, then maybe we should actually look at what was done in that feasibility study and not just the $1 a year lease. The other thing I wanted to bring up tonight, which was my original point, was my concern with the fees. The fees listed in this are stated to be part of the school district fees. Now those school district fees, the schedule was changed. There are some caps that are put on school district fees for certain activities. Those caps were removed from this fee schedule. The fee schedule also states, when we talk about the fee schedule, it states that it's North Huntington Township may be permitted to rent the sports facilities and other athletic facilities around the premises. In this lease, we define North Huntington Township as a municipal corporation organized and existing under the laws of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That being said, do these fees actually apply to residents? There's nothing in this lease that states that these fees apply to the residents and the citizens of this township. It is talking about the legal entity of North Huntington Township. To prove my point, in the statement above it, it says North Huntington Township shall be permitted to host and hold community-focused events. If North Huntington Township includes the citizens, then that means every citizen gets 10 days a year to utilize these fields. Additionally, when we do talk about the community center focused events, or upon certain portions of the premises, that the community gets to use the, North Huntington Township gets to use the fields for 10 days a year, it doesn't say that that's at no cost. How much is that going to cost us? Why is that not in here? When we look at the fee schedule, it was clearly just taken from the school districts. Some lines were removed, but this is not a representation of what has been displayed to us. This fee schedule does not include soccer fields. It says practice fields. Is that a soccer field? It does not include any of the indoor fields or facilities. What are you charging us for those? We're giving you our land for nothing, and you're not even telling us what you're actually going to charge us and ensure that we are getting a discount on use of these facilities. You haven't told us what your actual rates are for others outside, so how do we know that you are giving us a discount? Another thing is that on the end of September, I spoke with a few commissioners, and it was made clear to me that no business plan has been proposed to our commission. And I see that tonight. I asked previously, what are the projections? We keep saying that there will be jobs, that there will be revenue, but we have never been shown any data to support those claims at all. hearing that they've never received a business plan tells me why we can't be told that information. And I heard tonight people asking about jobs and revenue, and again, it was just general terms. What are those numbers? You have not engaged with the community to tell us what that information is, but you expect us to just be okay with signing a lease for $1 a year. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next resident is Alan Silverio.
Hello, my name is Alan. I live on 149 Skellytown Road. First and foremost, I'm a supporter of having more opportunities for children and citizens of this community in the way of recreation, education, athletics, and anything else that provides enrichment. But it has to be done in the right way. And if it's going to be done on township property, we as taxpayers have the right to heavily scrutinize any of these opportunities. For example, according to North Huntington Township on their website, there's an organizational structure. At the top, the CEOs are the citizens. Below, the Board of Commissioners. So we're kind of the bosses around here. Not the big, we do pay taxes, okay? And these taxes, they're a big deal. So we want kind of some answers on that. Before getting into further questions I have for the board, I want to speak to the board and all my fellow citizens and taxpayers here and watching online about the state of our township. Some of you may not know this. Board Township has a balanced budget, doesn't have any debt, and owns property, meaning they don't have a mortgage. This is frankly incredible in a good way. What other governing body or related governing body do you know that has a balanced budget and are in dire straits financially? U.S. federal government? No. Pennsylvania? No, they struggle. Even locally, the school district, they have their struggles, and the teachers union with their pension, they have trouble funding that. That's not good, right? So as citizens of this community, we should be proud of living in a community like this. Also, getting back to North Huntington, we have an excellent police force, public works department, and a parks department, and many other entities. Township obviously could always strive for improvement and should always be looking to grow as a community. We all could agree on that. I do want to specifically touch base on the township maintenance operations, as their building and operations are currently housed at this site. I personally think they are a wonderful asset to our community, and I know overwhelmingly the majority of people here think that. The individuals who I've observed working there all work hard, care for the community, and are for more sporting and recreation activities. They keep the roads clear in the winter, do all kinds of improvement and maintenance throughout the township to keep everything moving and everyone safe. They also care about the community. They've put on 2 wonderful events this last year, the Sestertennial, which was a great thing for the whole community, great celebration. And even last week, they had a cool Touch a Truck event. Me and my family went there. We met people from the fire department, police officers. It was really cool, really cool. They did such an awesome job. I kind of became interested in this certain topic because it seemed like, just following social media and the newspaper recently, it didn't seem like this investment group really maybe trying to make an effort to talk to these guys. And I think, why wouldn't, they're supposed to be sharing, this area, right? Wouldn't there be some teamwork on this? And it seemed like the maintenance department, they have a vested interest in this because they use all the property. They even this dump site that they have. They could dump like, in large areas of the property, but they're kind of be squeezed down, according to this latest drawing, to like 2/5 of an acre. That's going to fill up like not even in a year. So that's like an example, like this should have been like talked through. And also like the boundaries around the sporting complex. Like, how is this going to work? I mean, I don't know. It seems like they come up very close to the maintenance building. I know they're just, initial drawings or whatever, but like, I don't know. I just think, there's going to be a fence near this operation. Like, how's this going to work with big trucks coming in? The splash pad, I know that could probably change, but that's close to where the maintenance building is. But just in closing, I want to have a few answers. PennDOT, you have to go through advanced auto and the holiday travel. Have you negotiated with those guys? I want an answer on that.
So we're going to ask you to wrap up your time.
Okay. Yeah, and then no business plan. That doesn't make any sense. Explain yourselves. Why aren't you working with the maintenance department? And also, the traffic, real quick, you're hoping for it to go through the holiday travel agency. Okay. They're going to turn right out of all these events. They're going to turn, if they're from Monroeville, they're going to go through Skellytown. It's already a dangerous road. So, there needs to be better planning. There needs to be better planning. Thank you for your time.
Our next resident is Amy Gation. Ask you please come and state your name and address for the record.
It's Amy Geshin. My address is 11575 Dennis Circle, North Huntington. I have a few points to make, but they are going to have to fence in the public works, so is that going to be a township cost, which is a taxpayer cost, or is that going to be a Riverhound Sports Complex cost? On the post that you warned Chrissy about, the first comment that was made was, because they were all of our concerns. Private company, North Huntington Sports Complex, LLC, asking to lease township taxpayer land for $1 per year. One commissioner who has been selling this all over Facebook responded, in exchange for the dollar, the developer will be investing 30 to 50 million into our community. They are a for-profit business. They are investing in their business. Dollar leases are common in inner city cities where we're enticing people to develop land. Township proposing to lease taxpayer property for 116 years. The response by the commissioner was the lease can have up to 3 renewals. It is a 29-year lease. 29 times 4 does in fact equal 116 years. Renewal terms clearly state that the tenant has the right to renew provided no tenant default. The township has no say. They are a private company that can assign the lease to any affiliate in partial or whole. You're stating that the sublease, your response was the sublease clause has many functions. I've never heard of any coach, my son has played travel ball, they've never subleased a field. So that must be whoever's holding the tournament there. You said this indoor facility is built, there's opportunity for specialized businesses to locate there, such as Norwin Speed Academy and an orthopedic group. This has been addressed with the board. The truth is, in Article 12, Section 12.1, the tenant may, without prior consent of landlord, assign this lease in whole or in part in accordance with the terms set forth in Section 12.1b to any affiliate of the tenant. Affiliate, as defined in the lease, means any person that controls or is controlled by or is under common control with such party. So all of these investors that they have that we don't know who they are, they could sign it over to anybody is how that reads. In 12.1b, it says subject to the terms set forth in Section 5.6. Section 5.6 says tenants may subdivide as it sees fit in all respects to the requirements of applicable laws, which only means they have to follow planning and zoning laws. So if this lease gets signed, the commissioners have no say, because every time someone complains about a car wash going in, the commissioners say, we don't get to decide who opens a business here. This will be the same thing. The lease does not include terms for the township to revoke the lease at this time. At the time of lease or renewal, the North Huntington Sports Complex decides not to build a sports complex. You said there's an entire section on tenant default. Article 15, default and remedies, 15.1a. If tenant fails to pay any rent, we could all find 4 quarters anywhere. Or B, if tenant fails to keep, perform, or observe any of the covenants. The only covenant is in section 7.7c, commitment for initial sports field. Tenant covenants and agrees that it shall complete construction and open to the public 1 outdoor sports field within 5 years. There will be indirect costs to the taxpayers such as insurance, road maintenance, and unassessed impacts to township maintenance operations currently located on this property. Jason said insurance is covered by the tenant, much like when you get renter's insurance when you rent an apartment. Josh Zugai also responded to that comment and said 2, 3, 4, and 7 are completely false. 8 is false, but I guess it makes sense to carry insurance as a landlord, but that's their call. In section 9.1, the first line reads, landlord shall maintain during this lease commercial general liability insurance with limits of not less than $1 million per occurrence for bodily, personal, and property damage. You're an insurance agent, right? Wouldn't the liability insurance be a higher cost once the land is developed? For some reason, you're the only commissioner all over Facebook and going door to door selling this to people. And the next thing was not nice, so I'll keep it to myself.
Our next resident is Greg Rogers. Come state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Greg Rogers. I reside at 501 Janet Drive. And this is not about the children, the opportunities within our community. I support, the Norwin Youth Football League. I have a granddaughter who is actually in the D3 program. But the crux of my speech tonight is about the structure of this lease. North Huntington Township is leasing 43 acres of public property to a private investor, NHT Sports Complex LLC. Further, we'll term them as tenant, for $1 per year for 29 years with 3 consecutive renewals. That could total up to 116 years of control of public property. North Huntington Township does not have a clause built in there to reject the option of the renewal. So as long as they want to keep renewing this, they control this land for 116 years. Why is this important? There isn't anybody in here that's going to be here in 116 years. We're going to have our children, our grandchildren. They will have sold this off at that point in time. By signing this lease, we're pointing what's going to happen in the future for our children, our grandchildren of this particular area. In Article 12, Section 12.1, I'll read verbatim. Tenant may, without the prior consent of the landlord being the township, assign this lease in whole or in part to any affiliate. Again, control is not in the township. In B, it's talking points about subleases, which I think Commissioner Haggis was asking about earlier. But they're also speaking about subdivided parcels, and I think that was the question he was looking to ask. But in there it says about subdivided parcels that the tenant is in sole discretion of how it's done. Again, control to the actual people who are getting this for $1. They have no business plan. We don't actually know what they're gonna build. Yes, they put a rendering out. That rendering's changed 3 times. I have no idea how they could do a feasibility study on a rendering and know if it's gonna make money, not make money. They're just changing it to the whim to try to get you to sign this lease. There is one performance clause that I see in here that actually talks about a sports facility, and it's in section 7.7. Tenant agrees that it shall complete construction of and open one outdoor sports field within 5 years. There's no penalty clause. If they don't meet this goal, there is absolutely no penalty clause. One field, 5 years, $1, 116-year control. The taxes, we talk about taxes. They say they're paying taxes. Section 4.1 defines impositions. It means all taxes, assessments, occupancy taxes, all utilities, etc. But it states which shall or may during the term assessed, levied, or charged. Shall or may are not very definitive words for paying taxes. That means it's up to somebody's discretion. In section 3.5, we talk about abatements. There is a no abatement clause. The only mention of the no abatements is rent, which is $1. There is no mention of the no abatements in here for taxes, which means you could get an abatement on the taxes. There is a clause in here, in one of the sections, that spells out all the ways that you can dispute the taxes. So I don't understand where we feel they're absolutely paying taxes. We're talking about a lease. We're talking about a lease on a piece of property. I don't see anything spelled out in here on they gotta pay on structures and land improvement. That all needs to be in this lease. Control of 116 years. Children, grandchildren, we're determining this for them. Solicitor Dice, and I know he's not here this evening, but he keeps referring to this lease as baby steps in this process, stating it will need presented to the Planning Commission, zoning hearing boards. I agree, this is a long way from approval. But the signing of this lease gives the LLC control of this public property for up to 116 years with the ability to assign to any affiliate. As a North Huntington citizen, I cannot support this type of control over our township public property and strongly ask this board for a no vote.
Our next resident is Linda Funk. I ask you to come and please state your name and address for the record. The name is Linda Funk, and I ask that you please stop disrupting the meeting so people can hear when they're being called.
Hi, Linda Funk. I live at Winchester Road, 14481. With this proposed sports complex, who really benefits? We're giving township land that was purchased with taxpayer money to a profitable company. Last I heard, North Huntington Township, they were asking for some help to obtain government funds also. We have Oak Hollow, we have Tinker's Run, Indian Lake, and quite a few more. Why can't anything be done to enhance any of these parks for a community facility? Do we really think it's a good idea to have this complex next to Public Works? The access to the facility. I'm assuming that traffic flow will be coming on and off Route 30, which is already heavy traffic with safety concerns. For the developer, we would be handing them a prime location on Route 30 access, tax-free property at $1 a year rental fee, possibly future subleasing revenue, along with capital preservation for their company's future growth. North Huntington receives no long-term rental income, no tax revenue, and carries all the risk, including having to pay insurance and legal fees. How much is that going to cost us? Something else that's disturbing in the lease: if the tenant shall discover the existence of any hazardous material on the premises in the course of the construction of the improvements, the landlord shall be obligated to remove and dispose of such hazardous material at the cost and expense in accordance with environmental laws. Now, one example: just a few years ago, a local school district encountered hazardous materials during construction, and the removal cost for them was well over $1 million plus. Recently, there was a debate about two young families changing property zoning from business to residential to build homes. They purchased the land that even one of the biggest developers in our areas passed on. Half of our commissioners wouldn't approve it because you were so afraid to use future tax revenue, and yet they won their case in court, and now we're considering giving this land away for $1. The lease seems to only benefit the developers. This is a legal and binding document. Once this is signed according to the lease, the developer has total control of this property and can sublease to whoever they choose. North Huntington citizens won't have a say in who the tenant subleases to, nor would we have anything to do with who they choose for work, such as contractors, groundkeepers, and insurance carriers. This is on our township land, paid for by taxpayers. We will be losing multiple opportunities for future revenue. It looks like the only benefit for the township is a sports complex that our citizens will still have to pay to use. When you look at the timeline, Phase 1, they are committing to one outdoor field that could take up to 5 years according to the lease. So what is the estimated agreed upon time for the date of completion? We just voted in a school board that has totally taken our taxes to the highest increase possible. And to our commissioners and township management, why would we sign this lease at this time? What reputable legal counsel would let us sign without further review and important changes that benefit the citizens of our community? Land in North Huntington is at a premium, and there is not much left for future growth. Let's just use common sense, not give this land away, and not take on the possible burden of unforeseen astronomical expenses that ultimately falls on the North Huntington taxpayer. Thank you.
Our next resident is Marty McGill. I ask you to come state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marty McGill. I live at 10625 Roseway. That's in District 3-2. I'm in my 70s now. I've been a resident of North Huntington Township my entire life, and I have to say, up to this point, I've been so proud to say that. I think the township has been well-run. We have a wonderful police force. They haven't raised our taxes year after year like other aspects of our district have. But I've been a homeowner for 52 years in this township. So I've paid taxes to this township for 52 years. So I think that entitles me to a little say. At this point, I'm not saying yay or nay to this complex. I understand why people with kids, I had grandkids, want places for their kids to play. But there are so many concerns that haven't been addressed. Most of it, I think, is liability to the township, i.e. the taxpayer. What about all the insurance costs, sports complexes, wrecks, personal injuries? Is that all that insurance cost going to be on the township, i.e. the taxpayer? Like, who's going to pay At sports facilities, there's always an ambulance. EMTs are paid to be at that field when there's an activity going on. Is the complex going to pay for that or the township? There's too many unknowns right now for you to think about signing any lease yet, as far as I'm concerned. And I know that this will result in the need for infrastructure changes in this township. Who's going to pay for all these roadways, all the infrastructure changes that are going to take place? There's just too many things that haven't been sufficiently addressed, in my opinion. Secondly, just a comment. I wonder why we didn't send out a flyer to all the citizens in this township who pay for this township, just asking them, are you for or against this idea at this point? I know we have a small, very vocal component of the township that shows up at all these meetings, but what about the silent majority? I think more investigation needs to be done. Thank you.
Our next resident is, looks like Jesse Atkins.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Jesse Adkins, 12356 Maple Lane. My house is actually in the picture in Exhibit D. I own 5 acres adjacent to the township property, and my house is actually in this picture, so it's really relevant to me. I don't want to repeat a lot of the things that the citizens have come out and said already today. It's obviously been overwhelmingly negative, and I don't want to have to repeat all of that. I actually want to address some of the stuff that the citizens here, they did a great job saying the benefits of the sports complex. I think they did a better job than the developers talking about the benefits. You should have let them speak for you. I don't think anybody's against building a sports complex in North Huntington. I think it's a great idea. I think the issue is the issue of fairness and how we run our society. When public money buys land and then rents it in a completely one-sided commercial deal, I think everyone will agree this deal is ridiculous. I negotiate commercial contracts for a living. This is a one-sided deal. And gives it to a private corporation. That is a form of socialism. That is socialism. That is creeping socialism. And I think any commissioner, and I'm trying to make this real, I don't want to repeat all the points of everyone else. Any commissioner that votes yes is either allowing creeping socialism into our community or is corrupt. You have financial ties to this development group. That's it. You can buy land, thank you. You can buy land and develop it in North Huntington and build your sports complex. Your business plan that you don't want to give us is reliant on a sweetheart deal. This is a sweetheart deal. I want to address a few other things that some of my other fellow citizens didn't address. Now, $30 million in development. That's $30 million not to North Huntington, it's to the construction company that's part of the development group. That's where the $30 million is going. It's just leveling a hill to build fields and cutting down a lot of trees, right? That's it. That's where the money's going. It's not going to people in North Huntington. Again, the lighting and the parking are not addressed. The answer for the parking was ridiculous. You're not going to build parking lots. You're going to have thousands of people show up, and you don't have a plan for where they're going to park. Of course you're going to build parking lots. You should address that. It's ridiculous. Again, the light pollution needs to be addressed. I live adjacent to it. I think, again, I would love if you guys, I want to be part of the solution here. If you guys are seriously going to consider this, I'm happy to volunteer my time to help negotiate for the township to make this ridiculous lease a little bit more fair to the neighborhood and to the people in this town. Like one example of an idea, a 10-year renewal. Again, I think if they're going to take the commercial development risk, I think the township should renew the lease every 10 years. And it's contingent on aligned incentives. If they are actually providing a good for the town and the future commissions keep renewing it, then they keep their lease. But there's no way you should ever vote for a one-sided 116-year lease. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Like, it is a giveaway of public land. A few other things, the open bids, you should absolutely bid this out. It's ridiculous. I will bid right now, someone bid $5, I'll bid $50,000 a year. I will rent that land for $50,000 a year. I'll build some hiking trails, a pickleball court, whatever you guys want me to do. I'll do that myself. I like that land. It's worth a lot more than $1 a year. And again, don't let the socialism into our community. Don't let publicly funded land be given away for private profit. I am a free market capitalist. I think they should go and develop, you know, these sports centers in North Huntington. I'll help them do it. There's plenty of land nearby. Yeah, I mean, seriously, we want you to, but not, you should buy the public land from North Huntington. You know, this lease is ridiculous. I understand why you're asking for it. It's a sweetheart deal. It's absolutely ridiculous. I think I've said everything. Yeah, I think I covered everything. I want to yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we have about 25 more people to speak, so I ask you keep with the spirit of the previous gentleman, and please don't repeat things that we have heard, but I always ask for your comment, so.
Excuse me, point of order. Juliana has been taking notes for hours. I don't know how her hand is still attached to her body. Are you okay? All right, okay.
Our next resident is Pamela Peshok. Ask you come and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name's Pamela Peshok. I live on Adams Drive in North Huntington. I want to start off by saying thank God I do not live adjacent to this sports complex. It would be a nightmare. And the things that I don't want people to forget is that there is a lot of places on Route 30 that you can't make left-hand turns because of the safety, and they're trying to address that. So if they put a barrier up, then people are going to go up to Norristown Square, cut through there so they can turn around and go back, to that field. I don't want any of our children to suffer, to get hurt, injured, killed, anybody in this township for $1. This should be put up for sale. It shouldn't be up to your personal opinion. I agree that you guys should have a personal opinion, but you're voted in by us, and you need to listen to the citizens of this township. And from an overwhelming response, we don't want it. It would be great to have something in this community. But anybody in this township, I bet you they would put $1,000 of their money for a membership for 5 years to get what they want, not what they want. You guys look out for our benefit. I would rather you run the township, the building that you're going to do. You will have our interests. They don't. Thank you.
Our next resident is Michael Peshok. As you come and state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Mike Peshok. I live at 12480 Adams Drive. And I've read through the ground lease document that was released, and believe the ground lease does not favor our township. It seems to be really favorable for the for-profit company that is requesting a ground lease. Essentially, this ground lease has us selling property that we purchased for $300,000 to $400,000 for $116, losing the control of that property for 116 years. While it also provides for the company the ability to sublease portions of the same property that we're leasing for $1 for whatever they can negotiate from other people. And the township sees nothing comes back from those subleased pieces of property that they're doing. If you're going to allow for subleasing, then there should be something coming back to the township from the subleases as well. And I'm not talking field rental, I'm talking leasing portions of property. In the event that there's environmental issues discovered, the township is responsible for all costs for cleanup. The for-profit company seems to have no financial obligations to this whatsoever. The guarantee that the developer will provide one field that can be used within 5 years. This, of course, is a field that we would have to rent to use. The proposed site map that is included is, and has been stated, it is a proposed site map. Nothing holds them to that site map or anything that's on it, with the exception of the piece of property that they have. They can change what they're building, they can change who's building it. From the sounds of it, they can sublease the whole thing out and give someone else the opportunity to do it. And all they do is collect money while paying $1 a year. With the exception of 10 events per year that the township has to pre-schedule, all other sports complex items are rented for field or activity time. This ground lease is very one-sided. It favors the profiting company, not the township, not the residents. It is my opinion, if you're going to go forward with this, you should sell them the property. Let them own the liability. Let them own the responsibility of having to actually pay for the things that may or may not go wrong. That's part of owning a business and taking on the thing and the responsibility of building it. Thank you.
Our next resident is Jason Zugai. I ask you to come and state your name and address for the record, please.
Jason Zugai, 12120, Route 30. I am the brother of Josh Zugai. I coach local sports, wrestling, and other sports, my kids. You know, we desperately need this facility. We travel to Montour, out to Connellsville. We go all over the place, and that is travel sports, but we need this in our community. And I understand a lot of the detractors are from people that live in the community. I spent 40 years living on Charles in Clifton. I understand the traffic issue. I deliver newspapers there and walked the streets. I've seen the other gentleman talk about his son that walks the streets. I've seen him my entire life. Totally understand that. They're saying that they're not going to put that, any access down there. I don't see a problem with that. So just want to let you know that I'm for it. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Our next resident is Steve Cleveland. I ask you to come and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello. My name is Steve Cleveland. I live at 12340 Linchan Drive, North Huntington, PA. So anyway, I have a lot of experience in land development. I work for Cleveland Price. My dad started the company in the basement, and now we have about 350 employees. So anyway, from my experience, I have a lot of experience in land development. So anyway, about 10 days ago, I was approached by a few people and asked what I thought about the sports complex. I did not know much about the complex other than what I read in the Norman Star, and I haven't attended any meetings to hear what was going on, so I didn't really have an opinion. So I did some research and read the proposed lease agreement. I think the idea of having a privately funded sports complex is nice, but however, I do not like the idea of the township leasing land. I personally think the complex should be built on private property. Anyway, a couple days ago, I did a Dun & Bradstreet report on the North Huntington Township Sports Complex. Dun & Bradstreet is a really respected firm, so they look at companies, and I run them all the time for any company I do business with. They look at if you pay your bills, your credit rating, and so forth. But anyway, I ran the report on these guys, and it came up nothing. Nothing came up at all. So that was a huge red flag for me. There's no business plan, Who's funding the $30 million? Where's it coming from? Those are things we need to know. What's the return on investment? How are they going to make money and make this thing work? Nothing talks about that in the lease. I looked at Exhibit A, a design plan, and it's, really not that much more valuable than a sketch on a cocktail napkin. It doesn't really give a lot of information. It has zero stormwater planning in the picture. I think that mathematically, it's not even possible to put this huge complex, on this small amount of land. I don't think there's enough acreage. That's why you need to do an engineering plan, which nothing has been done yet. So anyway, an engineering plan, you need to do that in order to get the approval from the Department of Environmental Protection. and the Department of Action permit and engineering plan and stormwater plan. That all needs to be done to get the permit for the Westmoreland County Conservation District. All that stuff needs to be done. And anyway, I do have experience in the area of leasing land in North Indian Township. I personally own 40 acres of land on Spring Lane, right off of 983, right down the street from Cleveland Price. In 2020, I leased that 40 acres of land to First Energy Westbound Power for about 6 months. And when I did that lease, I required that they have a detailed engineering plan, which they did, and they did it from a prestigious engineering firm, Civil and Environmental Engineering, which is the Cadillac of planning. And it was not, it wasn't a lot of money. They didn't have to pay $300,000. So I think that to get a plan is, when you mentioned $300,000, is completely exaggerated. So if you have, $30 million, I mean, doing the homework and putting a real plan together is a must. And anyway, the lease I signed, it protected me and it protected the tenant. Right now, the lease that the tenant's proposing, it protects the township. I mean, it doesn't protect the township at all whatsoever. It only protects the tenant, and it doesn't protect the taxpayer. And finally, as a businessman, if this was offered is presented to me to build this complex on my personal property, for $5 million, I would have signed it the way the lease is. That's how ridiculous this lease is, how it's worded. It's absolutely ridiculous. And again, I don't think that the township should be in the business of leasing property. There's plenty of property in the township, in the surrounding areas available to purchase and develop. If the developer has $30 million, they should easily be able to purchase land and build their complex. So thank you for listening to me.
Our next resident is John Puskar. Ask you to come and state your name and address for the record, please.
How you doing? Thank you. My name is John Pushkar. I live at 551 Charles Drive. That is a property that is going to be directly affected by this facility on a daily basis. I just want to go through a few things. I'm trying to cross some things out here on my list that people already talked about to save everyone's time. I apologize I didn't hear the first guy speak. The two guys on the end here, can you tell me who you are again? Is it Josh Altman? Is that what you said?
John Altman.
John Altman,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And I know Josh Zugai. I didn't know. Am I allowed to ask who they are? I didn't hear the first guy that spoke.
Dave Ponsonby.
Dave, okay. All right. So I just had a few questions about a few things that you guys had said first. You said that you built multiple facilities like this already, and you had spoke of the Montour facility. Is that I don't know if he's allowed to answer, but is that the Riverhounds facility that you said or did you guys directly build that? Is that the one that's been in litigation for noise and light? They've been, the companies, the Coriopolis has been suing them for that. Is that the complex that you speak of? Or were you allowed to answer it? Okay, guess we're not allowed to answer that one. Some other issues I had was, I know there's some people here from the Norwood Youth Football Facility. I've been told by some people up here that you have offers from North for Sales. Why can't we go there? And that's close enough that all you guys can utilize those. You don't have to worry about traveling for travel football or soccer. It's very close. It's right down the road. That's always an option. My other point I would like to make is some of these comments on Facebook. It's hard to ignore. Do we really want to do business with guys like the developers they're very unprofessional, mocking, threatening, bullying people online on Facebook when they meet a little bit of opposition to what they're trying to do here? What's going to happen when they come across a problem in this building? They're acting like a spoiled little kid that's not getting his way. I have all comments screenshotted if any of you commissioners would like those, I'm, willing to email those to you guys as well. I just don't think these are people that we should be getting in business with. What else? Also, I would like to address Mr. Atwood's involvement in this. In my, I'm 43 years old. In my experience of living in communities, and I've never seen a commissioner with a vote this involved in something that he has a vote on, knocking on people's doors, trying to persuade them into going your way. I know you're highly involved in the Norwin youth football. How can I be assured that your vote is going to be for the people of Norwin and not for the greater good of a football organization? I have problem believing that you can separate the two. And then in closing, only other question I had, I think that's it. My last question is for Mr. Zugai. If this facility goes through, my question is, if you get upset or frustrated with that, are you going to turn off the power to this facility? Thank you. Have a good night.
Our next resident is, Dr. Bennix.
My name is Dr. Harvey Bendix. I'm Hospital Director of Norwin Veterinary Hospital, 12411 Route 30, and also own the property at 80 Hamilton Road, right above the proposed complex. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the commissioners for allowing us to speak. First of all, in terms of the $1 lease, I think right off the bat it would cost the township more to handle that $1 lease transaction than it would be to serve that $1 lease that they are getting. My main concern is the traffic pattern on Route 30. I have seen many accidents at our intersection of Hamilton Road and Route 30 in the years that I've been here. My wife and I opened Norwin Veterinary Hospital in 1978 and moved to our current location at Route 30 and Hamilton Road in 1988. Every year we have seen accidents, some very critical. I remember standing at my window one day and seeing a car overturning into our parking lot and a gentleman flying out of the car. That is a very dangerous intersection. It is only two houses or 2 units away from the entryway of the current highway township exit. We have to wait a long period of time for cars to be cleared on Route 30 before we can exit. So there have been many accidents there, and this proposed facility would add an extra severe hazard to accidents on Route 30. We can see many more accidents as a result of this development. Access to around the facility, as we have learned tonight, the only access way would be through Route 30, because they're not proposing any additional access way, if I understand properly. But it's a very highly traveled way and very difficult intersection to manipulate through, and again, a big traffic hazard when there is an accident there. Okay. I was involved in a bigger development than this, and the question I proposed is, I am also, as a veterinarian, obligated to protect animal and human health. What about mine subsidence? That area is known for mine subsidence. I have seen the mine subsidence area maps of this area, and that is a very big area for mine subsidence. So you do run the risk of hazardous waste materials being in that facility and in that proposed construction area. Who is going to take care of that? At this other proposed site, I asked the DEP and all the big engineers, what about radon? You're going to dig that site up. You're going to change the radon pattern and it may escape into the homes all around us. That is something that should be looked at. And who's going to pay? Is it the homeowner if radon starts seeping into their homes? That is a human health hazard. It has not been addressed. The value of the properties may go up, yeah, and the concept may be good, but I think the location is wrong. What happens if this corporation goes bankrupt? Who is left holding the bill? We see many major corporations in this day and age go under. Who is going to be left holding the bill if this company goes bankrupt? And in building this project, how much in cost overrides? What project of this nature hasn't been thought with cost overrides? Is the company going to be able to handle the overrides, and how many millions of dollars will that cost? I thank you for this opportunity. And I hope you will give this some thought and consideration.
Our next resident is Matt McKinney. I ask you to come and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hey, good evening. I'm Matt McKinney. My address is 1379 Samantha Way. I spoke at the last meeting, so I'm not going to belabor all of what I said all over again. You guys have had a long night, and appreciate the fact that you're taking the time to hear everybody out. I think there's a lot of good concerns that people have brought to attention. I think that these guys are taking those into consideration as they have the whole time, which is why there's been so many amendments to this process and renderings that's been put out there. So I think they are listening and they are hearing and trying to make it something that is good for the community and the township as well. I think there is some work to do on the lease, and I think that they were jotting down notes as they were listening to you guys and some of your concerns. So I don't think that that's something that's going ignored. I think we can all agree something like this is great for the kids. And I have heard a lot of people say, you know what, you're in it for this, for that part of it, just not their location. I can understand that. But I think these guys are doing their best to try to come up with something that's good for both sides. So I'm just here to say I'm for it. I'm not going to belabor any more points, and you guys all have a great evening. Thanks for letting me talk.
Our next resident is David Arendis. I ask you to come and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is David Arendis. I live at 630 Kimlin Avenue. I've lived there for 49 years. And I want to thank the commissioners for leaving me speak here tonight. I've read over this contract, try to understand it. I managed property for 28 years. And I know one thing, you're all being hoodwinked. These buyers are liars. There's a proposal to build this sports arena at the River Hounds at North Huntington Municipal Property. At this point in time, the residents that live behind and surrounding area are enjoying their quiet enjoyment of their property. In legal terms, this means loud music, complaints day or night, which would also include lighting intrusion it would create. Residents that live in this area should be respected and protected. If the commissioners accept this proposal, it will increase their revenue by $1 a year for numerous years. What a godsend that would be, huh? Okay, and what will we lose in return? Only our quiet enjoyment of property, gain congestion on Route 30 in Maple Lane in Skellytown, not to speak of probably a new stoplight or two. I wanted to ask all the commissioners if they'd show of hands to see who is for and who's opposed to this, because we all want to know who's getting greased. Okay, that's the important thing. Now, we're not against the kids having a playground. That's okay. This would be a good thing. But are you aware that down there, there'll be alcoholic beverages permitted at these games, and we do not think this is good for any of the kids to be around? Do you think about it being good a situation for the kids around when spectators leave the arena? There are usually up to 300 spectators at these games. Why should an Allegheny County team come to Westmoreland County to play? I'm David Arendis. I'm 72 years old. I've been paying property taxes since I was 20 years old. I've owned property. This year, I've already paid $4,480 for property taxes on my street. I want to thank you for your time, but I still would like to know, who's in favor of this project out of the commissioners? Raise your hand. Okay. How about negative? Don't want it. Not allowed to speak, huh? There's Tom. Tom's good. Eric's probably good. So, okay, I thank you very much.
Our next resident is Max McDowell. I ask you to come and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, Max McDowell, 11878 Sunday Drive. I grew up in Norwin. Currently own the Baseball Academy of Norwin off of Hometown Wendell, right below the high school. And I'm currently a pro baseball player. This is my 10th professional career. I played in the organizations of the Brewers, the Phillies, the Yankees, and this year, the Toronto Blue Jays. First off, I'd like to applaud the commissioners for considering a project like this for this community. I've been a part of conversations with other communities with projects similar to this. In-state, out-of-state, a bunch of my teammates get involved in stuff like this, and it's very hard to do. And I think that gets looked over, that one, you guys are willing to consider doing something like this, and then applaud Dave and Josh for bringing it to you guys, because it's very simple to say that, yeah, they're in it for profit and everything, but they're investing $30 million for the betterment of the community. And I can tell you from experience that youth sports is not a very profitable business. I've only met with these guys once, and I can tell you they're in it for the right reasons, and this conversation needs to be geared towards, do we have the right horses in the race to do this right for the community? And I think we look at our commissioners, we look at Josh and Dave, and if we can answer that yes, I believe it's an easy yes for the community, that everyone thinks this is a great opportunity for our community, for our home values, for our kids, for our school district. They can't turn it and flip it. They take a huge risk investing $30 million in a lease of this nature. Trust me, I've been involved in them. This lease could be, it's a huge risk for them. A lot of people have said, a lot of people have voiced concerns, and listen, the only thing we're voting on in the commissioners is, do we go forward with this lease to let them vet your concerns? I think we can give them that opportunity to listen to the neighborhoods, light pollution, sound. If we give them a yes, they can move further into the process to answer these concerns, answer all the questions, because they are in it for the right reason. They want this community to be better. They don't want anyone in here to feel ill towards them, the kids. I really do believe they're in it for the right reasons. People have talked about other opportunities, other land. Everyone in here knows that land at North Huntington is at a premium. There isn't another parcel of land, I truly believe, that has an opportunity to host something like this in North Huntington. There isn't another opportunity for land that's zoned correctly, that's willing to work with the township, that has investors willing to invest on it in our township. Yes, we could go into Yawk, we could go into Hempfield. It will not support our local kids. I own the Baseball Academy of Norwin, and my last thing I wanted to end, when you have people that are in it for the right reason, it supports the community, it supports our community teams, our high school teams, people within this township. Monroeville Township just called me with 22 teams. They have no place to go to use my facility. First and foremost, I serve the Norwin community, which pretty much fills my facility. I can't help Monroeville. I will always serve Norwin first. I believe these guys are in it to serve Norwin first, and that's why this facility has to be within our township. And again, I applaud the commissioners for considering a project like this. It will overwhelmingly be great for the community, great for the kids. You will get quality people that come in and coach these kids. And the last thing I'll touch on, sport has been everything in my life. I remember playing at Turner Valley, PAL, NCAA. You have to allow kids the opportunity to be invested in sport, with facilities like this, in it for the right reasons, in their backyard. It's not an answer to go drive to Monroeville, to drive to Montour. Youth sports has become a huge issue of money, profit, and if you aren't in it with the people and the right reasons, that's what it'll turn into. You can go to other facilities, play youth baseball for $5,000 a year, or you can stay within Norwin, work with people in it for the right reason, and it's affordable. It keeps kids in the game. They make friendships. They make memories. Parents are together. It matters. So I applaud everyone for considering this. I hope the town and you guys can work towards answering all their concerns, which are valid. No one's not valid here. But I applaud you for considering the project. I'm really excited for it. I hope it can happen, and I'm excited for the kids and the families that it would benefit.
Our next resident is Levon Shields. I ask you to come and state your name and address for the record, please.
There goes my phone. Excuse me. Levon Shields, 371 Charles Drive, North Huntington. I'm not going to reiterate everything we've heard. I'm tired, she's tired, you're tired. I think we've beat it to death. But one comment I do want to put out there is, in that development, there are 3 right-of-ways that lead from Charles Drive, Janet Drive, and Taylor Drive that goes to that property. When you have a right-of-way, everyone has a right to use that right-of-way, and especially the people that live there. So if that right-of-way is there, anybody from that property can use that right-of-way to come in to Charles Drive, just so you're aware of that. The only thing I can say is the township bought that property. I worked for the township for 47 years. I worked there when they bought that property. They didn't buy it. The intentions was not to purchase that property, to develop it as a sports complex. If the township wants a sports complex, I think the township should do it, not a business. Put it out on the referendum again and ask the taxpayers, do you want us, the residents, the township, to build a facility? And are you willing to pay your tax dollars for such a facility? We're not against kids playing any sports. We've all had kids in sports. We've coached, I've coached. Everybody, nobody would object to that. But I think you need to ask your taxpayers what they're willing to spend, and let's keep the middleman out of the project. You take the responsibility on, you hire the people, and you do the job. That's what you're elected for. Good night, and I hope you do the right thing.
Our next resident is Brian Blasco. I ask you to come and state your name and address for the record, please. Yep. Right, our next resident is Joe Blasco. I ask you to come and state your name and address for the record, please.
Brian wanted to stay, but he had commitments. My name is Joe Blasco. My name is Joe Blasco. I live in Willow Glen area, which is right across the street from the proposed park. Okay, the bad part, when I come in, I didn't want to say anything because I didn't have any. Then being the last one, of course, it gets filled up with all kind of things. And everybody's gone over this stuff. I did want to say a couple things. I raised 3 sons through sports. Now they all have children. I have 9 grandchildren. They're all involved in some sport or whatever. Soccer. I go down to Turner Valley as a grandparent, and every Saturday, Sunday, whatever, I have to go down there. 1 million cars in the parking lot. I don't know where they're going to put them across the street from me in that facility, because there's cars coming in, cars going out. You have to fight for a parking space. That's just one thing. I think it was very forward-thinking to buy the property. Again, like somebody else said before, maybe not for a sports complex, but for down the road. We're growing. And one more thing. everybody in here that's talked had good ideas. You guys ought to think of running for public office. I didn't realize there was that many smart people in this stuff. I mean, and concerned, because everybody stuck it out.
Sir, I ask you address the board into the microphone so we can hear
Yes,
you.
okay, but I don't know if you heard me, but these guys are smart back here, okay? And I'm gonna just touch a few points. Somebody said, a couple things I didn't know. You guys have 4 complexes, that's what I understand. I thought this was a one and done thing. So it is a for-profit business. Make no mistake, this isn't a community park you're building. And one thing I didn't like about that, I followed them on social media and they shut off the comments. I guess there was too many negative comments and you couldn't chime in anymore, and then the post disappeared. So that says volumes. Let me see what I got. Oh, and then I did see one thing. There was a post on there. It was from one of the commissioners. Somebody had said that the taxpayers bought the property, and the commissioner said it wasn't the taxpayer, it was the township. Well, if a commissioner doesn't know that the township is owned by the taxpayers, there's a problem there. I mean, I'm not naming names, I don't know who it was. I mean, I know who it was. Okay. Okay, and then if you did want to go through with this, I appreciate you guys trying to do something. Give it fair market value. You're putting $30 million in, 10% for land, $3 million. Give $3 million, I think you'll turn a lot of heads, but not for $1. I mean, 30 million is a lot, but $1 is nothing. And these people that live local, they have it in their backyard. They hear that noise. I hear the noise in Willow Glen across the way when they do that sesquicentennial or whatever it's called. And their property value is going to go down. I mean, is that something we want to? I mean, maybe we have a sports and another thing, I'm all over the place. I'm sorry about that. But we want a place for our kids. We want a park for our kids. We don't want a park for the cream of the crop. 5% of the kids end up like a pro. You know, our kids aren't going to all win. I want the kid that's walking down with 2 different kinds of shoes on, a sock, but he's having fun. I'm not worried about somebody trying to work out. They'll go the extra mile. They'll drive the Montour. They'll drive the Monroe. My kids went to Monroe. We took them everywhere. When they went to college, I thought it was over with. I still went and saw their games. I mean, this is wrong on so many levels, and I'm not going to go all through this stuff, but thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you. Good night.
Our next resident looks like Sandra Chalmers. Sandra. Last call for Sandra. Our next resident is Nicholas Kukla.
Nicholas Kukla, 12250 Carmine Drive. I'm not going to ramble on here. It's getting pretty late. Max, you made some excellent points. I just want to express my support for the guys up here. I know them very well, and I know that they really do have great intentions. You know, the money stuff, that's all to be worked out by you guys. But I know in here that they really do care about this community. And I think turning a project like this down would be like looking a gift horse in the mouth. Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Our next resident looks like Justin Merlin. He had to leave. Our next resident is Brandon Bennick.
Brandon Bennick, 130 Oakmont Street. Pretty much everything I was going to say has been covered. All of my concerns have been answered. It seems like most of the concerns of everybody in this room have been answered, whether they realize it or not. I just wanted to voice my support for the complex, and that's about it.
Our next resident is Tina Jocelyn. As you come and state your name and address for the record, please. She left? Right, David Martinelli?
Good evening, welcome to, I'm sorry, David Martinelli, 14292 Valley View Drive, North Huntington. Let's shift gears for a moment here. These will be random thoughts from a very old mind, but it's food for thought, and I'm going to ask you gentlemen some rhetorical questions, which, as you know, you're not required to answer at this time, but you may consider coming back with some answers to some of these questions in the future. As I publicly stated before, while it's a very nice sounding idea, you know, as many others have said, man, the information we've received so far is not ready for prime time. So here are some of the things that randomly concern me. Someone did mention tonight the need for barrier separation for all of the public works, buildings, road space, supplies, etc. I'd like to see something more substantial than a 10-foot chain link fence. At some point, some people are going to want to talk about what we've presented is legally sufficient. To me, legally sufficient merely means that where there's a law or an ordinance that has to be addressed, we addressed it. But that does not necessarily mean that you, as the developers, being residents of this township, looking out for this township, are willing to go above and beyond what's legally sufficient or what minimum standards there are for this project and concern for your neighbors. Had you thought about building a turnpike wall to shield all the people up on the hill? You know, drive in all those things, put in all, beautiful turnpike wall. Had you looked at the property at what some people have said is Tanglewood Stables? I went down, I saw a real estate sign. I put a call in. I didn't get a call back yet, and if they don't call, I know a guy that can get the answer anyhow. I am still waiting to see, either from the commissioners or from the developers, a very large map of the entire 90-plus acres that the township owns and the immediate environs around it, and a drawing of that portion which you're seeking to develop. Because the few things that I've seen so far are wholly inadequate. Don't have a big picture. You can't sell half a picture. You can't sell half a car. You can't sell half a development. We talk about the dollar a year, the amount of the lease. Has anybody broached the subject of sliding lease payment schedule? That as the development grows and begins to generate income, your annual lease payment increases at some ratio or some predetermined limit. But you've never said anything about that. And you know this auditorium is not in favor of $1 a year. It don't float. And finally, the challenges have been laid out. Now, you need to propose solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Our next resident is Noah Litzko. Ask you to state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Noah Litzko. I live at 2120 Wingap Drive in North Huntington. And I just want to start by saying I am for the sports complex. I do understand a lot of the people, I would call them locals, the people who live on the streets nearby, their concerns with it. And I would think if they could, the Sports Complex LLC could figure that out and work with them and work with you guys, that it would be very beneficial to us. I think it would be very beneficial to us with the colder months coming up. There's very few facilities around here to get active in. Like, I can say myself, I'm not going to be going to Indian Lake to be running a mile whenever it's -5 out in January. And then, so that's how I feel about the sports complex. I would kind of want to shift to you guys and kind of persuade the type of sports you guys would be bringing in. I don't know if you guys will answer this, but I was wondering if you guys have ever considered a roller hockey rink to be put in the sports complex at all. If you don't want to answer, that's fine. I would just say that a roller hockey sports complex with the proper tile, you could put down the same sports that you guys are doing, like that you all want to do: pickleball, basketball, inside flag football, all kinds of stuff can all be done on a roller hockey rink. I used to play out of a roller hockey rink out in Mount Pleasant called Hot Shots Indoor Sports Arena that unfortunately closed down partially due to COVID. That was a great 2-rink facility, and they had all kinds of sports year-round, especially in the winter. It was completely packed. And I just think if you bring one of those back to here in the sports complex, it would greatly be able to like handle everything you guys would want to do sports-wise, and it would also include inline hockey. To go off of Norwin, I know Norwin Inline Hockey. I used to play for them. They are not affiliated with Norwin, like as a school district, but they have multiple teams, elementary through high school, and right now they're traveling all the way down the Bridgeville Bridgeville Hockeyplex, to just for practices every Thursday. That's over an hour commute through both tunnels from here, which no one wants to do that at 6 o'clock on the Thursday. So that is just one of my, like, I would say suggestions to you guys would be to consider putting in a roller hockey rink if this all goes through, which I am for. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next resident is John Lasciadio. Ask you to come and state your name and address for the record, please.
John Lasciadio, 202 4th Street, Irwin. Thank you guys for dragging this on. I know this kind of is not great way to spend your night, but thank you. Dave and Josh, thank you guys also for even getting us to this point, I guess. I own a training facility on Hometown Wendell Road. I actually share a building with Max. It's called NSSA. Obviously, I'm in support of this wholeheartedly. I coach football at Norwin, and I'm pretty deeply involved with almost all of the athletic programs. There's an obvious need for fields and space. There's not enough turf fields. We split the field with all of the teams. There's multiple teams that are practicing at once. There's different practices that are crossing over into other practices. I spoke at the meeting, I think in August, and I talked about that. There's actually kids that are held out of practice because of some of the field conditions, especially with where we're at in season. Some kids are banged up. When we practice down in the pit below the field house, it's not safe. The field's not upkept. They don't practice. It hurts us as a program. Whenever we weight train in the off season, the field house down there has 5 squat racks. Obviously, that's a district problem, but this could help. We have 80 kids on the team. We all can't lift at once. It's not safe for us all to lift at once, so we don't. Through the off season, there's other sports. A lot of the other sports don't train at all. It's not good. We're a 6A school. Why? Because they don't have the facility to do so. This would help. Whenever we do lift in the off season, a lot of the scheduling conflicts we run into are, say, football and track. Track's in season, we're in off season, we're in the weight room, we're training. To solve that problem, our kids get up at 4:30 in the morning, we weight train. It's not good for the parents, it's not good for the kids, it's not good for their education, it's not good for anything, but that's what we do. You guys have heard about all the Monroeville stuff, back and forth. We've talked about it being privately funded, the $1 lease. I will say this about Josh and Dave, every time that they've been told to jump, they jump. If you guys want to talk about the lease and the price of the lease, talk about it. I'm sure they'll jump again. Thank you, and I'm in support of the project. Appreciate it.
Our next resident is Amy Rohal. Amy? Looks like Amy has left. Our next resident is Matt Celia. We have Matt Celia. Our next resident is Robin Simmons.
Good evening. I'm Robin Simmons, and I'm a proud resident at 11611 Clifton Drive, North Huntington, PA. First and foremost, I am in full support of the sports complex. I know the motives of those who are spearheading this effort are pure, genuine, and in the best interest of the North Huntington residents. In particular, Mr. Josh Zugai has dedicated countless hours to researching, planning, and negotiating the most advantageous deal to the residents of North Huntington Township. I've heard some people say that Mr. Zugai, quote, can't be leading this effort out of the goodness of his heart, or this effort by Mr. Zugai is self-serving. And if you said that, you would be in fact wrong. In case you don't know, Josh is a lifelong resident of North Huntington and a true Norwin Knight, a 4-year starter for the Knights football team, 2001 Norwin graduate, and played Division I football at Duquesne University. Upon graduating Duquesne, Josh could have went anywhere in the country, could have moved, started a family anywhere. He came back to his hometown here in North Huntington. If there is anyone who is trying to make this dream a reality and do the right thing for the right reasons, it's Josh Zugai and those that are spearheading this effort. Second, someone wise once said, embracing positive change is one of the most difficult things for a human being to do. I would implore everyone in this audience to think about the negative changes that have happened to North Huntington Township over the years. The things that used to be here that we wish were, like Blue Dell Swimming Pool, Blue Dell Drive-In, Massung Poultry Store, Rivertown Sports Bar, Chesterfield's, Teddy's, Caradam Golf Course, and the list just goes on and on. Each one of those places are no longer here for different reasons, and their departures have negatively affected the township in some way, shape, or form. Bringing this sports complex to North Huntington will add significant recreational capabilities and resources for our residents. However, the positive second and third order effects that it will have economically from this sports complex being here may prove to be even far more significant. In closing, I would ask the North Huntington Board of Commissioners to make this sports complex a reality. Don't be closed-minded to new ideas. If you're closed-minded, then neighboring communities like Delmont, Plum, Penn Trafford, Franklin Regional, and Latrobe will continue to flourish, while our community stays stagnant and possibly goes in the wrong direction in the future. Ensure a fair contract is put in place that contractually benefits the township, has maximum functionality and appeal for residents, and allows businesses to flourish in the future in North Huntington. This sport complex will propel North Huntington as the premier place in Westmoreland County to not only build and raise a family, but to build and raise a successful business. I thank you very much for your time. God bless.
Our next resident is Michael Strevig. Michael had to leave. Okay, last resident is Matt Gordon. I ask you state your name and address for the record, please.
Matt Gordon, 400 Christine Drive. I'll be brief. We're worried about traffic, we're worried about noise, we're worried about light, and you guys maybe will address that. We'll find out. I think you need to work on the lease. I think they've brought up some great points as to how we need to improve that, and I am against it currently until it's improved in the lease and have a better plan. Thank you.
At this point, that closes our citizens' input. Moving to response to citizens' input, I have a few things that I jotted down. First was the access to the neighborhoods. Mr. Zuga, I believe you'd want to address that.
Yeah, there's no plan to access the facility via the adjacent neighborhoods. We can spell that out better in our lease for the next definitive turn. And I think, John, we were talking about perpetuity, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's the kind of plan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the woman is still here who made the point about rights of way. Obviously, you can't stop people from driving on certain streets. But in terms of the way ingress and egress is set up in and out of the project, 100% heard on wanting to protect all the surrounding neighborhood areas. There are a handful of ways that can be accomplished. I think these guys are open to all of that because they live in the area too, and they don't want that either. So I think the way this sits down on a fishbowl, topographically, that should be able to be achieved. We could probably better spell out on subsequent actual site plans when we're getting into the permitting phase, a much more clear part of this project that would alleviate a lot of the traffic concerns, a lot of the noise concerns that I heard tonight, because that's all going to be part and parcel with getting permits approved.
Next thing I've written down is regarding the subdivision of the parcels. Could you guys please elaborate on what that would look like if you would subdivide a parcel?
Or subdivide premises, right? Yeah. Yeah, so the current, I believe it's one current parcel right now, isn't it? Or is it multiple? Yeah, so the current configuration is one large parcel of land. We would need to subdivide to isolate the proposed lease premises. So that roughly 40 plus or minus acre tract that we would be proposing to ground lease, we would have to effectuate a subdivision to separate that off from the remainder of the township property. As for future subdivisions, I don't know that we are far enough along in the process to really establish whether that's going to be required or desirable. Depends on the phases of the project, financing along the way, all that stuff would impact whether or when, if at all, you subdivide.
I have another question that's directed toward the solicitor or the manager. We already pay insurance on this land, and it would not be any different from if the sports complex was built or not, correct?
Yeah, we currently, and Mr. Falk can verify, but my understanding is all of our properties are currently insured. And the normal, it's per occurrence when it says $1 million. So each occurrence, if there's a claim made for each time, it's on $1 million limit, so you know. But yes, all of our parcels, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they should all be insured by the township.
That is correct, they are.
The last thing I have written down is the other amenities that were discussed. The inline skating, inline skate park, some of the other amenities that were brought up. Or I ask, are you folks willing to look at that?
We're certainly willing to look at that. I mean, we want as many things there that make sense for us, for the community. I mean, I wish we could have everything. I wish we could take, lease all the land and have, but we're limited by space and what the ground will hold. But we'll certainly evaluate what goes down there, and if we have to amend our plan, we will.
The last thing I have before I turn it over to any other commissioners, the $1 a year lease seems to be a large hurdle here. Our Parks Department has been funded by fee in lieu now for quite some time. I did some research. The average contribution from fee in lieu over the last 6 years has been about 25,000 a year. I was wondering if you gentlemen would consider matching that as part of the agreement.
Yeah, hear you loud and clear. Let us take that on advisement and get back to you as soon as we possibly can. Okay? Thank
I'd be
you.
okay with that.
If I may, just to help to put a finer point on everybody that's focusing so heavily on the $1 a year, there are 7 figures worth of site development costs alone just to get this thing developable. This is not a pad-ready site that is worth millions of dollars. And for all those that are talking about, why don't you just buy it? Well, what about all the other concerns? Are those concerns still present if they just bought it? Is the concern with the proposed development, or is the concern with the economics? And furthermore, to be very clear, the improvements would be owned by the ground lessee. A for-profit limited liability company, as many folks pointed out. They're absolutely correct, right? As the improvements are owned by that for-profit entity, those improvements are subject to property taxes. So for all the folks that are focusing so much on $1 of nominal rent a year, you can't evaluate the economic impact of the lease to the township and for the benefit of the township without also taking into calculation what taxes are generated, what additional business is generated. So that's why these public-private partnerships exist. It's not because some wheels are getting greased. It's because that's part of the sauce to make these things actually come to fruition so that the township doesn't have to raise your taxes to build this sort of a project. Because that's what would have to happen if the township was going to invest $30 million of its money.
Does any other commissioner have any response or comment? Commissioner Zona, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I just have a question. I believe it would be for Mr. Fonzie. A business, is it correct to say that any type of business in the township cannot just create a road or use a road and exit their traffic onto a township road without coming before the township?
I mean, a development of this size would require a full traffic study, traffic impact study. So we'd see how many daily trips there would be, what kind of mitigations would be in place.
That's what I mean. So they can't just go, I know these gentlemen said they would put something in a lease that they would not exit their traffic and enter it from that residential area. They can't just do, is it correct to say they can't just do that anyway because they would have to come to us?
That's a tough question because the property in question borders a right-of-way, an existing right-of-way. The question is, was that parcel created by the subdivision where the right-of-way was created, which would be, I think, Taylor Estates 3 or whatever phase of development that is. This has gone to court in different cases where people can say, well, that's a private right-of-way, you can't access it. So by me looking on a map two-dimensionally, yes, they could access those right-of-ways through the Public Works parcel.
And are those right-of-ways in the area that would be leased to them?
I don't believe so, no. It looks like it's on the outskirts where
So
it's
would that
currently
change it then?
vegetated.
Would that still give them access to that if that's not in the area where they lease it?
It could if they decide to dedicate the right-of-way and make it a public road.
Okay.
I don't know if they're keeping these private or if they're gonna turn it over to the township. That would be a question.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board members have response to citizens' input? Go ahead, Commissioner Gray, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I have a half a page of notes here, but I'm only going to hit the highlights. I think we're asking the developer to answer a lot of questions that he can't answer because he doesn't have the lease. A site plan, stormwater management, all the things that we're asking, he can't answer without the lease. Tonight's meeting has not, as they say in polling, has not moved the needle for me. I'm still against it. And I'm not against sports. I'm not against soccer. I'm not against kids, as I heard somebody say online, I guess, those that oppose it are against kids. I have 2 kids. They're grown now. But I'm not against kids or activities or the things they learn from participation in sports, the values they learn. I'm not against any of that. My hang up on this is not just the financial of $1 a year and no business plan to prove you're going to make money and survive, and no plan to share any of that, if you do survive, with the township residents, either in cash or in free services or access. That is not documented. Unless it's documented, all these things we've asked for tonight are documented in the lease. I have no choice but to say no, because you can't guarantee them, just like you can't answer the questions that kind of we're asking, like, where is the exact boundary? Why is Exhibit B missing on the lease? The legal definition of the land to be determined after lease signing. And at lease signing, we lose all rights to that property and all leverage to get what we want for the residents. So as a layman, I found so many faults with that lease that I actually retained a real estate attorney to give, from out of the area, to give us an objective opinion. And without going into what we talked about on the phone after they read it, they said, this is so one-sided, I can't believe you would even consider it. So what I have here is their comments. And a lot of them maybe you can address. And I'm not interested in helping you address the comments so that it passes, because I'm still, like I said, the needle didn't move for me. I'm still against it, but I'm willing to share it with you. And the cons they came up with were 27, and the pros in the lease for the township were 5. 27 to 5. And there was no mention of any real benefit in those 5 pros. But there was something that added a little bit of protection for the township. Not the residents, nothing else.
Could you share the name of the real estate lawyer that you talked with?
I
would be happy to go through his comments.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I'm sure I've worked with him before.
Yeah.
Or her.
Okay, well, have at it.
I'd be happy to.
Check, there's one for everybody. I think I'm short one down that way, but you can share it. Or if there's anybody in the audience that wants the comments from the attorney, email me, I'll send you the version, electronic version. So, that really sums up my comments. It seems, well, I'm not even going into the board comments that were made tonight. That's it. Thank you.
Any other board members have any further comment? Go ahead, Mr. Goss, the floor is yours.
If I may, and I'm not about to say what I'm going to say as a form of grandstanding or gaslighting. Tonight is a prime example of a democracy in a republic, where the citizens get to come out and voice their opinion to an open society, that we want to know what everybody's thinking. I want to thank each and every one of you that came out tonight, whether you're for it or against it. I think it's invaluable that people voice their opinions, and we do it with grace and dignity and honor and integrity. I know some of us get heated about things. I get that. That's your personality. That's our personalities, some more subdued than others. But to come here tonight and speak openly and not worry about threat and retaliation, I just want to say I'm happy that everybody came out that did come out. I'm happy to hear what everybody voiced their opinion. It's important. It's just part of a beautiful democratic republic that we have. I think the year was 1787. Mr. Ben Franklin stepped outside the building, and a woman in the audience said, "Mr. Franklin, what kind of government do we have?" You guys remember this story? A republic, if you can keep it. Well, I think Mr. Franklin would be proud tonight that we were civilized, we were kind to each other, we showed grace and mercy, even though that we disagree sometimes. But it's not the end of the world. I will tell you, no matter whether you're for it or against it, your voice was clearly and loudly heard. And it will resonate in my decision as well. So thank you again for coming out. Really appreciate it. Thank you. May God bless America.
Any other commissioners want to offer any further board comment? At this point,
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Zona and a second by Commissioner Gray. Any further discussion? All those in favor by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed?